Chapter 55. Zi Qingjian raised his head and glanced at Feng Nu. Feng Nu and Nian Bing were both looking at him. His bronze face suddenly flushed red and he coughed. Okay, let's rest for a while. Seeing his awkward appearance, Nian Bing looked at Feng Nu strangely and Feng Nu frowned. Zi Qingjian's natural disposition was simple and straightforward, and he was not good at concealing himself. They could all see what this robust man was thinking. Even Zi Qingming was somewhat dissatisfied with her brother's state of mind. She used her hand to touch him, wanting to help him recover some of his senses. The four of them came to the edge of the forest, not far away, and sat down facing the road. The ancient trees towered into the sky, but there was no shade at this time. On the bare branches, they could occasionally hear the unpleasant cries of crows. The biting cold wind blew. This was indeed the coldest time of the year. Although Nian Bing didn't know any martial skills and her body was only average, she had ice and fire magic to protect her body. She only needed to circulate the magic in her body and release a second-level ice body technique to completely resist the cold. The Phoenix Maiden, on the other hand, simply ignored this level of cold. Zi Qingjian's body was robust and his dou qi was exquisite. This bit of cold didn't enter his eyes. Only Zi Qingming's martial skills had yet to reach the next level, and she cultivated wind, a tribute dou qi. The biting cold wind blew and she couldn't help but shiver from the cold. When they left the academy, they all left in a hurry. Zi Qingming had always been in the academy and spent most of her time in her room. When she left, she had something on her mind, so she only brought some simple clothes. Now that she realized the cold, it was too late. She put on a coat and only slightly eased the cold. Zi Qingjian lowered his head, thinking about his troubles. His face alternated between red and blue. He didn't notice his sister's discomfort at all. Zi Qingming was naturally arrogant and refused to ask her brother for help. Her face gradually changed in the cold. Nian Bing sat between Feng Nu and Zi Qingjian. He had originally wanted to chat more with Feng Nu about what had happened in the past few days, but because of the Zi Qingjian's demeanor, he decided not to. He didn't know what to say, but when he saw Zi Qingming's expression change and her body tremble, he couldn't help but ask, "Miss Qingming, are you cold?" Zi Qingming had been able to endure the cold along the way, but now that they had stopped, the cold wind easily blew through her clothes. She had long been unable to bear it, so when she heard Nian Bing ask her this question, she felt a little grateful. He nodded. "A little. It's a bit cold." Zi Qingjian heard their conversation and woke up from his thoughts. He turned his head to look at his little sister and was shocked to find that Zi Qingming's lips had turned blue. He was startled and quickly took off his jacket to cover his little sister. "Little dream, why didn't you tell me that you were cold?" Zi Qingming unhappily snorted. "I don't need your jacket. You don't wear much anyway, so you can keep it for yourself." Nian Bing wanted to use her magic to create a fire to help warm their bodies, but Feng Nu suddenly stood up and walked to Zi Qingming's side. "Elder sister Zi, it's not good for your body to endure the cold like this. If you hurt your meridians, it'll leave behind a lasting illness." She smiled, and the smile on her face naturally gave people a sense of trust. Zi Qingming, who was originally jealous, heard Feng Nu's gentle and caring voice and quietly changed. Just as she was about to say something, Feng Nu's hand was already on her shoulder. A warm current flowed from Feng Nu's slender white jade hand into Zi Qingming's body. The cold qi dispersed in the warm current and Zi Qingming could even feel traces of cold flowing out from her body. The warmth from the inside helped her expel all the cold qi. Gradually, the warmth turned into a scorching heat. No matter how much the cold wind blew, it was unable to invade her body. It was warm and indescribably comfortable. Lifting her hand, Feng Nu smiled and said, "All right, my dou qi can prevent you from feeling cold for at least an hour. Moreover, it has already completely expelled the cold qi that invaded your body." Zi Qingming stood up and gratefully held Feng Nu's hand. "Thank you, Miss Feng Nu smiled and said, "What are you thanking me for? We're all in the same boat. It's only right that we help each other." No, of course I have to thank you. Of course I have to thank you. I thank you on behalf of my sister. If you need me in the future, I will do my best to help." Zi Qingjian also stood up incoherently. Nian Bing couldn't help but laugh in her heart. She wasn't worried that Zi Qingjian would chase after Feng Nu. She only felt that Zi Qingjian's silly appearance was very cute. "Feng Nu, I'm also cold. Can you also help me get warm?" Feng Nu glanced at Nian Bing and said, "Don't think that I don't understand magic. Don't try to trick me. Whether it's ice magic or fire magic, both can be used to effectively resist the cold." Nian Bing smiled sheepishly and said, "I've already used up most of my powers when I was cooking in the academy. How can I resist the cold now?" Feng Nu said in a bad mood, "Then you can use the righteous Yang saber. Wear it on your body. You won't feel cold even if you don't use anything." Nian Bing saw that Feng Nu wasn't fooled. She smiled and shook her head. Looking at her long pink hair, she was actually a little dazed. Right at this moment, the crisp sound of horse hooves sounded from the side of the road. The weather was cold now, and Lanmeng City was a relatively remote city, so there were very few people on the nearby road. Suddenly hearing the sound of horse hooves, everyone couldn't help but look over. They saw a dozen or so riders quickly heading over. Their mounts were of high quality. Although they were running very fast, their landing was very light and didn't kick up any dust. As they got closer, they could faintly see that this group of people was wearing large cloaks to resist the cold. Each of them was in high spirits and their figures were steady on their horses. Their riding skills were extremely exquisite. Nian Bing stood up with some confusion. She shouted towards the riders that were about to approach the four of them, "President Carlo, is that you?" "Stop!" The rider on the lead horse fiercely pulled on the reins. The fine horse gave a long neigh and reared up, stopping in the middle of galloping. The following riders were clearly well trained. They didn't panic at all and stopped behind the leading rider. "Nian Bing, it's you. What a coincidence." The leading rider jumped down from the horse. It was the president of the Ice Moon Empire's mercenary guild, Carlo. He was wearing black leather armor inside, and a large cloak on the outside. There was a long sword on his back and a golden moon mark on the left chest of the cloak. Nian Bing went up to him and smiled. "That's right. What a coincidence, President Carlo. Are you going to carry out a mercenary mission?" Carlo laughed. He walked to Nian Bing and said, "An employer submitted a level 1 mission to the mercenary guild. It's very difficult for ordinary mercenary groups to complete, so I accepted it. Look, I'm bringing my own mercenary group members to complete it. Why are you here? Last time, I heard you say that you were going to Allen City?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "I was going to Allen City, but because of some matters, I was delayed. Now I'm preparing to go. Did you go to Ice Snow City?" Carlo turned around and made a gesture to the mercenaries on the horse. "Let's go. Let's go to the side and talk. Don't block the way." The mercenaries dismounted one after another. One of them led Carlo's mount to the side of the road. When Carlo saw Feng Nu and the other two, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. "Nian Bing, are these your friends?" Nian Bing saw the doubt in Carlo's eyes. She knew that he was surprised that there was a different woman beside her, but how could she explain this? She could only say, "Yes, let me introduce you. This is Feng Nu. These two are Zi Qingjian and Zi Qingmeng. Feng Nu, big brother Qingjian, Miss Qingmeng. This is President Carlo of the Ice Moon Empire's mercenary guild." Feng Nu and the other two nodded to each other. Nian Bing took this opportunity to look at the mercenaries that Carlo brought with him. She was surprised to find that apart from the blue moon mark on their chests, these mercenaries were dressed the same as Carlo. Moreover, each of them had a dignified aura, and all of them looked to be in their 30s. They didn't talk to each other and rested on the side of the road with their horses. A few of the mercenaries stood in a reasonable position to guard the road. From their aura, one could tell that these mercenaries were even stronger than the members of the Silver Feather Knights that she had seen before. Carlo pulled Nian Bing to the side and said gratefully, "Nian Bing, thank you so much for what you did last time. I've already discussed with President Long in Ice Snow City and reached an agreement to solve the problem of the two guilds. Now, our mercenary guild has formed an alliance with your Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild." Alliance? Although Nian Bing had already expected that Long Ji would choose to cooperate with the mercenary guild, she didn't expect that they would form an alliance. This was because the Magician Guild was the highest-level guild on the continent, and the Mercenary Guild was a low-level guild. Long Ji could abandon his prejudices and make the decision to cooperate with the Mercenary Guild so closely. It could be said that he had great foresight and was indeed the best choice for the Magician Guild. "President Carlo, can you explain more clearly? What does this alliance entail?" Carlo smiled and said, "It includes all the cooperation you can think of. Our mercenary guild will provide all the funds and resources your guild needs, and your guild will provide us with the magic scrolls we need. The most valuable thing is that 20 magicians from your guild will join our mercenary group. This will greatly increase the strength of our mercenary group. Speaking of which, I'm afraid that no other mercenary guild on the continent has 20 magicians. Moreover, all of them are above the level of Grand Magicians, and they are all led by Archmage Leo. This time, we didn't have the confidence to complete this level 1 mission, but with Archmage Leo and 2 other Grand Magicians, I'm confident that we can complete the mission. They have already taken the carriage in front of us, so we will go and meet with them. Nian Bing, President Long highly admires you. How about it? Are you interested in completing this mercenary mission with us? You can rest assured that there is no problem with the treatment." Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Forget it. I still have to hurry along with my friends. You won't be affected if I'm not around." Carlo's face showed a trace of disappointment. "That's really a pity. Actually, it won't take up too much time. Our goal this time is a treasure. According to the employer, there are not only all kinds of valuables in the treasure, but also some lost magic incantations and secret martial arts book. These are all rare and good things. If you are willing to go with us, based on your help to our guild, I can let you choose 3 things as your reward. How about it?" Gold and silver treasures were unable to move Nian Bing's heart, but these lost magic incantations moved her heart. According to Long Ji, the reason why the magic world was gradually declining was because many ancient magic cultivation methods and powerful magic incantations were lost. If she could obtain some powerful magic incantations that she could use, it would naturally be very beneficial for her future revenge. Her gaze met with Carlo's as she asked, "Then what is the employer's request? Since there is such a good treasure, why doesn't he look for it himself, instead hiring you? Could it be that he is not afraid that you will embezzle it?" Carlo's face sank slightly and said, "Nian Bing, you are looking down on us too much. The Ice Moon Empire mercenary group I established is named after the Empire. It is the only first-class mercenary group in the Ice Moon Empire. Credibility is the guarantee of our development. Frankly speaking, the reason why the employer decided to take out the map for us to complete the mission is because that map itself is broken. Moreover, according to the map, this treasure is a cursed treasure. The map he obtained is only a copy. There are a total of 12 copies of this kind. According to reliable sources, the other people who obtained the copy of the map have already organized people to search for the treasure, but none of them returned alive. The danger of the treasure can be imagined. Therefore, the employer took out the map so easily. It can be said that this map is the reward he provided. If we find the treasure and successfully transport all the treasures out, then the employer only needs the legendary bottle in the treasure, and the other treasures will belong to our mercenary group." "The legendary bottle?" Nian Bing looked at Carlo in puzzlement. Carlo said, "The employer is a mysterious middle-aged man. He only said that there is a black bottle in the treasure, but didn't really reveal the secret. As long as we give that bottle to him, the mission will be considered completed. In addition to the things obtained in the treasure, he will also pay us another 10,000 purple coins as a reward. I think that bottle might be a magic item. For this mission, this time I have brought all the elites of the mercenary group. What you see is only a part of the people. The other part includes the 3 mages of your guild. For this trip, our Ice Moon mercenary group has sent a total of 32 great swordmaster warriors, 3 pugilist warriors including me, and 3 mages. Our strength is so strong that I think no mercenary guild on the continent can reach it. Therefore, I am very confident in completing the mission. How about it, let's go together. I will definitely keep my word. It would be unrealistic to say that she was not moved. As soon as she thought of the possible existence of the ancient magic incantation, Nian Bing's heart burned. She nodded and said, I will discuss it with my friends. Carlo took a leather pouch from his waist and opened it to drink some water. You are welcome to join. I trust your friends. He had an extremely good impression of Nian Bing. With her help, his Ice Moon mercenary group and the Ice Moon Mage Guild formed an alliance. Immediately, from the strongest mercenary group in the Ice Moon Empire to one of the strongest mercenary groups on the continent, Nian Bing played the role of threading the needle. Therefore, Carlo had always wanted to repay Nian Bing. Although carrying out this mission had a certain degree of danger, in his opinion, the strength he brought was already enough. The reason why he invited Nian Bing was to take this opportunity to give her some benefit. It could be considered as repayment, and at the same time, to win her over. In his secret conversation with Carlo, Long Ji had already hinted to him that Nian Bing was his successor. In order to allow the 2 guilds to continue working together, Carlo had long wanted to find an opportunity to meet Nian Bing. However, he did not expect that the opportunity would come so soon. Nian Bing walked in front of Feng Nu and the other 2, and softly described the mission that Carlo had mentioned. How about it? Are you guys interested? I think that since President Carlo has brought a large number of experts this time, the treasures won't be too bad. If you guys aren't willing to go, then we can only part ways here. Nian Bing had already made up her mind to go with Carlo. The temptation of the magic incantation was too great. Feng Nu's eyes flashed and she said, I have no problem. I am not in a hurry to reach Allen City. There is still some time. As long as it doesn't take too long, it will be fine. However, I have a condition. If we really find the treasure, I want to choose one item from it. Of course, it definitely won't be the bottle of their mercenary group's employer. Nian Bing nodded and turned to Zi Qingjian and Zi Qingjian, saying, What about you guys? Zi Qingjian hesitated for a moment before looking at his sister, Xiaomeng. Why don't you go back to the academy first and wait for me? It sounds a little dangerous, I'm afraid, Zi Qingmeng snorted and said, What's there to be afraid of? If you guys can go, then so can I. We left the academy in order to gain experience. This opportunity is not bad. Nian Bing smiled faintly. She said, Then there's no problem. When the time comes, everyone can look out for each other. With the strength of so many of us, there shouldn't be any problems. Just as Carlo had said, the Frozen Moon mercenary group had mobilized all of their elites this time. Including herself, there were a total of 4 experts at the Great Mage rank and above. In addition, with the existence of Feng Nu, a quasi-swordsman, what kind of difficulty could stop them? Returning to Carlo's side, she said, President Carlo, we have decided to participate in this mission. However, I have a friend who has a request. If we find the treasure, she wants to choose one item as a reward. Carlo frowned and said, Nian Bing. This condition is a bit harsh. Although I am the leader of the Frozen Moon mercenary group, this mission is very dangerous. The rewards may also be very large. Agreeing to let you take 3 items is already the limit. I can pay a certain amount of money for your friends, but to choose the item, I'm afraid. Nian Bing smiled and said, President, there's no need to be embarrassed. Didn't you just say that I can choose any 3 items? How about this, I will only choose 2 of them. The remaining one will be chosen by my friend. This way there won't be any problems. However, I believe that if we encounter true danger, you will definitely see that my friend has the ability to choose any one item. When Feng Nu proposed this condition, Nian Bing didn't feel anything wrong with it. After all, Feng Nu had enough strength to make such a request. Carlo looked at Nian Bing with some surprise, then looked at Feng Nu, who was holding a longsword. He nodded and said, We'll do as you say. When Di Hui finds the treasure, we'll decide how to distribute it. Nachi Hadia, give up your horses and ride with the others. Nian Bing, I'll give you 2 horses. When we reach the next city, we'll buy a few good horses. Nian Bing nodded and said, Then let's set off now. The 2 mercenaries brought their horses to Nian Bing's side. Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a bit awkward. Logically speaking, he should be riding with Zi Qingjian, while Feng Nu and Zi Qingmeng should be riding with each other. However, when the 4 of them were preparing to mount, a problem appeared. Nian Bing was a bit better. Although he was tall, he wasn't too strong. However, Zi Qingjian's body was rare in the world. With their size, it would be difficult for them to ride together. For a moment, they didn't know how to distribute the horses. The Frozen Moon mercenary group had already given up 2 horses. When the 2 mercenaries gave up their horses, Nian Bing was too embarrassed to ask them to give up another one. Zi Qingmeng suddenly opened her mouth. She walked in front of Nian Bing and said, I'll ride with you. Let my brother and little sister Feng Nu ride the other. This way we should be able to fit. Nian Bing was stunned for a moment. When he looked up, he saw that Zi Qingjian's eyes were filled with excitement. Zi Qingjian had always treated him as a brother. Although Nian Bing wanted to ride with Feng Nu, how could he say it out loud? Zi Qingmeng took the initiative to ask to ride with him. Clearly, she wanted to give her brother a chance to get close to Feng Nu. A strange feeling filled his heart. For a moment, Nian Bing was speechless. Feng Nu walked to the side of Nian Bing and Zi Qingmeng and said, Big sister Qingmeng, do you know how to ride a horse? Zi Qingmeng was stunned for a moment. She shook her head and said, I don't. Although I've been studying in the martial arts department, I've always been multitasking. I'm also studying cooking. I don't have the time to practice riding like my brother. However, I will definitely learn it well in the future. Feng Nu, my brother's riding skills are very good. Don't worry, you won't have any problems riding with him. Feng Nu laughed and said, I'm afraid that won't work. You don't know how to ride a horse and Nian Bing doesn't either. How can you keep up with the group? Zi Qingmeng was stunned for a moment. Her eyes turned to Nian Bing and said, You don't know how to ride a horse? You're a man. Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, Why must men know how to ride a horse? There doesn't seem to be any obvious connection. Besides, I'm a magician, not a martial artist. Zi Qingmeng was now in a difficult position. Then what should we do? Feng Nu smiled and said, Forget it. I'll ride with Nian Bing and you and your brother will ride with me. That way the problem is solved. I've also learned a bit of riding, so it won't be a problem to carry Nian Bing. Nian Bing was overjoyed, but her expression didn't change as she said, Then that's the only way. Feng Nu, I'll have to trouble you. Feng Nu looked back and smiled. What trouble? Just be careful when the time comes. I'm very fast when riding a horse. Zi Qingmeng was stunned. Even if Zi Qingmeng wanted to help him, there was nothing she could do. She could only blame herself for not knowing how to ride a horse. She walked to her brother's side and said, Let's get on the horse. Zi Qingmeng nodded dejectedly. He pulled over a nearby mount and his eyes landed on the horse's back. The moment he landed on the horse's back, the horse suddenly let out a long neigh and stood up on its hind legs. Then its front legs touched the ground and its hind legs swung to the side, wanting to throw Zi Qingmeng off. Zi Qingmeng hadn't realized what was happening when he got on the horse's back. Now that he felt danger, He subconsciously pulled on the reins and pressed his body against the horse's back. Blue Dochi covered his entire body, making him seem like a leaf stuck to the horse's back. No matter how the horse tried to shake him off, it couldn't throw him off. The horse's outburst was a bit untimely. At this moment, Zi Qingjian was feeling gloomy. His large hand stretched forward and his thick and powerful arm tightly wrapped around the horse's neck. He shouted in a deep voice, "Behave." His originally light as a leaf body suddenly became extremely heavy. The horse whinnied and fell to the ground, unable to make its previous movements. He could feel the horse slowly being conquered by him. Zi Qingjian loosened his arm and gestured to his sister. Zi Qingmeng leapt up and landed in front of him, leaning against Zi Qingjian's broad and sturdy chest. Good riding skills. Carlo couldn't help but applaud from the side. At the same time, he met Nian Bing's somewhat stern gaze. He shrugged his shoulders and didn't say anything. Nian Bing was somewhat dissatisfied. The two horses that Carlo had his subordinates bring over were clearly professionally trained horses. Other than their owners, it wouldn't be easy for anyone to ride them. Clearly, he was testing her friend. Feng Nu's martial arts were good, but was her riding skills good? Just as Nian Bing was puzzled, Feng Nu had already grabbed the reins of the other horse. A strange scene occurred. Her movements were not as nimble as Zi Qingming's, but from the moment she pulled on the reins to the moment she sat on the horse's back, the horse was docile and didn't resist at all. Carlo and his subordinates all stared with wide eyes. It must be known that this horse was even more irritable than the one Zi Qingming was riding. Nian Bing looked at Carlo and the others' surprise. Although he had some doubts, he didn't ask. He walked to the side of the horse, but he was a bit embarrassed. The reins were in Feng Nu's hands, and the stirrups were also stepped on by her. How could he get on? He didn't know any martial arts techniques to lighten his body. Could it be that he had to use blizzard? If that was the case, the horse wouldn't be able to withstand the influence of magic. At this moment, a white jade-like hand stretched out in front of him. Feng Nu's voice sounded, "Grab my hand." Like the sounds of nature, Nian Bing's heart completely settled. He somewhat anxiously grasped that warm and slender jade hand. When he raised his head, he saw that Feng Nu was also looking at him. Before he could say a word of thanks, his body was already flying under the influence of a gentle force. Fortunately, Nian Bing had experience flying with blizzard before, so he didn't cry out in alarm. When his whole body shook, he found that he was already sitting on the horse's back. Feng Nu's slender body was right in front of him. "Hold my waist, sit tight." Seeing that Nian Bing and the others had already gotten on their horses, Carlo waved his hand and the knights all got on their horses at the same time. The sound of the horses' hooves became hurried, and along the main road, they quickly rushed forward. At this time, the most excited one was Nian Bing. He clearly felt that his heart was beating faster. His hands were wrapped around Feng Nu's slender waist, and a faint fragrance filled his nose. His chest was close to Feng Nu's back. Right now, it was as if Feng Nu was in his embrace. A warm feeling came from the front. Feng Nu's waist didn't have a trace of excess flesh. Although separated by several layers of clothes, Nian Bing could still clearly feel Feng Nu's elastic skin. A wonderful feeling spread throughout his whole body. Even if the horse had already started to gallop, Nian Bing didn't feel it. He was completely intoxicated in that moving atmosphere. Feng Nu's feelings were even stronger than Nian Bing's. Her entire back was pressed against Nian Bing's body. A man's masculine aura invaded her body without fear, especially Nian Bing's two large hands. They emitted waves of heat from her waist and abdomen. Her face burned. Feng Nu's heartbeat was no slower than Nian Bing's. The group of horses continued to gallop. The originally bumpy ride had now become a paradise of enjoyment. Nian Bing's arms tightened around Feng Nu subconsciously. He hoped that this road would never end. At the back of the group were the Zi Qingjian siblings. Zi Qingjian's strong arms protected his sister in front of him as he controlled his dismount. His mood was abnormally gloomy. Looking at Nian Bing and Feng Nu in front of him, his eyes flashed with a complicated expression. Big brother, don't think about it. Zi Qingming's low voice came from in front of him. Zi Qingjian's body shook. Me? I'm not thinking about anything. Zi Qingming faintly sighed. Silly big brother, the expression on your face is so obvious. Let alone me, even Nian Bing and Feng Nu have long since seen it. Give up. Don't tell me you still can't see that the relationship between Feng Nu and Nian Bing isn't something you can interfere with. Feng Nu is willing to ride with Nian Bing. Do you still not understand? Zi Qingjian was stunned for a moment. That's because you and Nian Bing don't know how to ride a horse. Little sister, I actually don't have any extravagant hope. Zi Qingming smiled bitterly. Silly big brother, don't think too much about it. It's impossible for you and the Phoenix Maiden to be together. Nianbing is handsome and he's also a great magician. You're inferior in all aspects. Don't let yourself fall too deep. That will only make you feel worse. Zi Qingjian was silent for a moment. Little sister, she really is beautiful. When I first saw her, I already had her in my heart. Brother Nianbing is indeed stronger than me. If she chooses Nianbing, I will only give them my blessings. I don't have any extravagant hopes that she will like me. Can't I like her in my heart? Zi Qingming was speechless. She didn't expect her big brother to be so infatuated. While they were talking, Nian Bing and Feng Nu's situation also changed. Feng Nu, who was controlling the galloping horse, suddenly whispered, Nian Bing, what are you doing? The intoxicated Nian Bing was suddenly awakened by the hot breath on Feng Nu's back. He discovered that a certain part of his lower body had reacted and was pressing against Feng Nu's back. This discovery immediately embarrassed him. He quickly moved his body back. Feng Nu, I didn't do it on purpose. Feng Nu's voice trembled a bit. You, hurry up and put that thing of yours back. The sturdiness behind her caused her heart to fluster as a strange feeling continuously invaded her entire body. Her strength as a quasi-martial saint was completely useless at this moment, and her delicate body had already become somewhat numb and painful. Chapter 56. Nian Bing loosened his arms around Feng Nu. He wanted to move back a little more, but the general workshop was only so big. Where could he hide? The more he wanted his brother to move back, the harder that disobedient little brother became. The friction between Feng Nu's back and buttocks kept sending bursts of pleasure. At this time, Nian Bing felt like he was going crazy. All the muscles in his body tightened. He lowered his head and anxiously said in Feng Nu's ear, It doesn't listen to me. Feng Nu, I really didn't do it on purpose. Don't misunderstand. Feng Nu was so anxious that she was about to cry. It was cold, but she felt like there was a fire burning in her heart. Can't you think of a way? Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, What can I do? Unless we stop and rest for a while. Feng Nu, how about you bear with it a little more? After running for a while, you should be able to rest. Feng Nu's left elbow hit Nian Bing's ribs and said angrily, How can I bear it? Nian Bing, you are so bad. If I had known, I wouldn't have ridden the same horse as you. Nian Bing felt pain, and his attention was immediately diverted. Feng Nu, I am a normal man. Who asked you to be so attractive? Feng Nu whispered, Idiot, don't you know ice magic? Use it on yourself, and that thing will go back. After saying this, his pretty face was as red as an apple. Fortunately, everyone was hurrying forward at this time, and no one noticed his embarrassment. Nian Bing hesitated for a moment and said, But that will hurt me. Feng Nu, how about this, let's talk for a while. Maybe it will be better if we are distracted. Feng Nu took a deep breath and said with a choked voice, Nian Bing, I hate you. How am I supposed to face people in the future? Nian Bing was shocked. He didn't expect that Feng Nu, who had always been strong, would cry. Suddenly, it was as if cold water had been poured on his face. The brothers below finally beat the gong to retreat. He returned to his position. Nian Bing lowered her head. Although she still had her arms around Feng Nu's waist, she tried to keep a little distance from her. Because of her contact, Feng Nu cried. What did this mean? Her fiery heart, which had been aroused by the appearance of Feng Nu, gradually cooled down. Feng Nu said in a low voice, I'm sorry. When they arrived at their destination, they met up with the magicians. I will take the carriage. I promise the same thing will not happen again. Feng Nu recovered a little as the people behind him retreated. Nian Bing's calm tone made him feel a little weird. He raised his hand to wipe away the tears in his eyes and said in a low voice, What's the use of saying sorry? Sit tight. You're so far away. You'll fall when you turn. Didn't you say you wanted to chat? Then what should we talk about? Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. He hugged Feng Nu's waist tightly again and said with a smile, Let's talk about you. How did you practice martial arts? You're so powerful. I underestimated you before. The Phoenix Maiden sighed softly and said, There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The reason why I am where I am today is admittedly because of my constitution, but it's also inseparable from my many years of cultivation. I don't know who my parents are. It was a few elders who raised me. According to them, it started when I was just born. They soaked my body in all kinds of potions to help me fully display my physique and improve my potential. From the age of 3, I began to practice Do Chi with the help of a few elders. When I was 7, I already had the ability of a high-level warrior. In a way, I didn't have a childhood at all. My childhood was completely spent in practice. I am 19 years old this year and have lived for 19 years. I can say that I have practiced martial arts for 19 years. Speaking to this point, there was a faint trace of sadness in his voice. Nian Bing thought for a while and said, Then, the special characteristic of your body must be the 9 leaving body that Principal Purple Dream mentioned? At this time, his mind had already calmed down. Although Feng Nu's temptation was still there, reason had taken the upper hand. He wouldn't lose his composure like before. Feng Nu's delicate body trembled slightly, and she said in a low voice, Nian Bing, I know you are very smart, but there are some things that you shouldn't guess randomly. Knowing too much won't do you any good, do you understand? Nian Bing smiled and said, As long as you don't tell others, how would others know that I already know? To be able to cultivate your strength, the power behind you must be very strong. Feng Nu said, Let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you. You once told me that your parents are dead and you learned magic by yourself. Could Zi Xiu also become a great magician at such a young age? Moreover, you have the same origin as ice and fire. I think that the secrets on your body are no less than mine. Nian Bing, sometimes you give me the feeling of a simple big boy, but sometimes you are like a gloomy wise man. You don't show your emotions on your face. Just now was the first time I felt that you really lost your composure. Nian Bing sighed and said, Actually, I don't have as many secrets as you think. I only have ruthlessness in my heart. Because of that, I can give up a lot of things. The revenge for my parents is not worth the effort. Right now, I only have 2 goals. One is to fulfill my master's wish and promote my cooking skills. The other is to take revenge. However, my enemy is too strong. Even I am not sure when I will have the strength to contend against her. Feng Nu said, Perhaps I can help you. Who is your enemy? This was indeed a tempting suggestion. Feng Nu was already close to Swordsman's realm. With her help, the chances of revenge would be much higher. However, Nian Bing shook her head and said, No, I want to take revenge myself. Feng Nu, thank you. Although my enemy is strong, as long as I don't give up, I will be able to surpass her one day. Carlo, who was in front, suddenly slowed down and separated from the group. By the time the other riders passed by, he was already parallel to Nian Bing and Nian Bing. Nian Bing, you are a magician. can you handle such a long ride? Nian Bing smiled and said, It's all right. There shouldn't be any problems for the time being. Feng Nu's riding skills are very good. The horse is very stable. President Carlo, where are we going this time? Carlo said, We are going to the heavens-shaking mountain range, 600 kilometers away from Alland Empire's enemy, Alland City. According to the map, the treasure we are looking for is there. Once we enter the mountain range, we will have to abandon our horses and walk on foot. However, don't worry, I have already made preparations. When the time comes, there will be warriors to help you magicians walk on the mountain path. Feng Nu made a sound of doubt. She said, The heavens-shaking mountain range is located in the easternmost part of the Ottoman Empire. Beyond the heavens-shaking mountain range is the Alland Sea. It can be said that the heavens-shaking mountain range is a natural warning line in the east of the Ottoman Empire. Even if the heavens-shaking mountain range is very close to the sea, there is no way to cross the mountain range that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. Because of the heavens-shaking mountain range, there is no more land behind the mountain range. Thus, the heavens-shaking mountain range is very desolate and sparsely populated. If we go there to search for the treasure, logistical support will be a problem. Moreover, because the heavens-shaking mountain range is not valued by the Ottoman Empire, there are no roads in the mountain range. Thorns grow everywhere, making it difficult to travel. It seems that the mission this time is very difficult. Carlo looked at Feng Nu with some surprise. I didn't expect this lady to be so familiar with the geography of the continent. What you said is exactly the same as the result of my investigation. The situation in the heavens-shaking mountain range is very complicated and there are many dangers that we are still unaware of. Otherwise, this treasure wouldn't be called the cursed treasure. However, you can rest assured that we won't give it to you. Our guild has spent a large sum of money to purchase a few high-grade spatial magic items that can store large amounts of resources. It is enough for us to use for several months. Moreover, the location of the treasure is in the northwest of the heavens-shaking mountain range. After entering the mountain range, the distance isn't too far. Thus, if everything goes smoothly, we might be able to complete the mission in half a month. If we encounter a crisis that we are unable to deal with, the resources that we have prepared will be enough for us to retreat from the mountain range. Of course, I don't wish for this to happen. Overall, for this mission, I am very confident. I am still very confident. I hope that it will be as smooth as you say. In terms of food preparation, I suggest that you prepare more vegetables, rice, and seasonings. We can directly replenish the meat in the mountain range. It would be best to prepare some simple medicinal herbs. Of course, a large amount of clean water is also essential. If it is only dry rations, everyone will be lacking in food and drink, and their strength will also be reduced. As for the medicinal herbs to be used for jumping, I can give you a list. You only need to buy it according to your feelings. They are all things that clear the muscles and circulate the meridians, replenish the qi and nourish the body. Carlo frowned and said, Nian Bing, I'm afraid this won't do. We mercenaries aren't as delicate as you magicians. Normally, we just need to prepare some simple dry rations. If we bring these things like you said, don't tell me that we have to bring a chef into the heavens-shaking mountain range. After all, Nian Bing was still young. Although he admired Nian Bing, he still felt that his request was a bit excessive. Feng Nu smiled. You don't have to worry about this. Nian Bing is not only an outstanding magician, he is also an outstanding chef. The food that he cooks is the most delicious that I have ever eaten. Carlo stared blankly for a moment and said, Chef? This? Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, You don't have to feel awkward. Where are we going to stay tonight? When the time comes, you will understand what I mean. You can rest assured that I will definitely not give you any trouble. As a top-notch chef, his requirements for food were indeed very high. Unless it was like the time when all the managers in the library were immersed in magic research, he would usually do his best to cook his meals. Even if it was a simple steamed rice, Nian Bing could make a completely different taste. Carlos said, "Then we will talk about it when the time comes. Before we enter the heavens-shaking mountain range, our last supply point is the heavens-shaking city, which is closest to the mountain range. Right now, another group of people should have already arrived there and prepared some necessary tools for us to enter the mountain. After we arrive there, we will rest a bit and then directly enter the mountain. If we hurry through the night, we should be able to reach the heavens-shaking city in the middle of the night. When the sky turns dark, we will first find a place to eat some dry rations and rest for a while before continuing our journey. Nian Bing, if you can't hold on any longer, just come out. It doesn't matter if we arrive a bit later." Carlo once again returned to the front of the group. His relationship made Nian Bing have a better impression of this mercenary union. "Nian Bing, I'm afraid things aren't that simple." Feng Nu suddenly lowered her voice and said to Nian Bing. Nian Bing said without batting an eyelid, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Feng Nu nodded and said, "The heavens-shaking mountain range is indeed desolate, but it is very dangerous to go there. As far as I know, there is a strange race living there." Nian Bing sneered and said, "A strange race? Yes. They are very strong. If possible, I suggest that you propose to President Carlo to terminate this operation." Nian Bing said with a bitter smile, "I'm afraid that's not very possible. President Carlo has mobilized so many elites of the mercenary group. Clearly, he is determined to complete this mission. At this time, who can persuade him?" Feng Nu, what kind of race is that? To be able to make you place so much importance on it. Feng Nu sighed and said, "On the continent, although humans are the rulers, there are still some secret races. Although they rarely come into contact with humans and are completely self-centered, if humans encroach on their interests, they will not hesitate to destroy the invading humans. As for what kind of race it is, I can't say. Or we can withdraw." Nian Bing said with some difficulty, "But I have already promised President Carlo. I'm afraid it's not too good to withdraw now. Maybe the treasure we are looking for has nothing to do with the race you are talking about?" He was more and more confused about Feng Nu's true identity. But he understood that no matter how he asked, if Feng Nu didn't want to say, he would definitely not say. Feng Nu sighed and said, "Since that's the case, then I'll go with you. I hope it's like what you said, that this operation has nothing to do with that race. After all, the heaven-shaking mountain range is very big and the number of that race is not many. Maybe they don't live in the northwest. But you have to promise me, if you really meet that race, you must leave with me immediately, even if you have to abandon your companions. Otherwise, even I don't have the confidence to save your life." Hearing Feng Nu's serious words, Nian Bing hesitated. But when he thought of the ancient magic incantation that President Carlo mentioned, he still had the thought of withdrawing. Although he already had a certain understanding of the affinity of ice and fire, but until now, he still didn't have the confidence to fuse the two types of magic into one through the cultivation method he imagined. And the ancient magic incantation was very likely to be helpful for him to cultivate more profound magic. For the reward, he chose to take the risk. Time slowly passed. In the biting cold wind, the sun gradually set in the west, leaving a faint red hue in the sky. During this time, Feng Nu used her 9 abandonment Do Qi twice to help Zi Qingmeng resist the cold, allowing her to persevere. Along the way, Zi Qingjian and Zi Qingmeng didn't speak much. Especially Zi Qingjian, who was originally cheerful, now seemed somewhat gloomy. Nian Bing and Feng Nu both understood why he was like this, but no one said anything to avoid awkwardness. In the beginning, because of Feng Nu, Nian Bing didn't feel much, but after 4 hours of riding, the bumpy ride on the horse gradually made him unable to bear it. All the bones in his body felt like they were scattered, especially his hip bone, which was indescribably awkward. At this time, his body was completely leaning on Feng Nu's body. He hugged her waist tightly to lessen the strain on himself. Fortunately, it was his body's condition that affected his concentration, so the awkwardness from before did not appear again. The faint fragrance from the Wind Girl's body was Nian Bing's greatest motivation. His head was leaning on the Wind Girl's pink hair, smelling the faint fragrance and feeling the Wind Girl's supple body. Although his body was uncomfortable, he still didn't want this process to end too early. "It's dark, let's get off the horse and rest." Carlo's voice sounded in front of them. The horse slowed down, changing from a gallop to a trot. Under Carlo's lead, everyone came to a relatively flat slope and stopped. The warriors dismounted one after another. For them who had been training for a long time, this kind of journey couldn't be easier. "Hey, let go. Haven't you hugged enough?" The Wind Girl's voice sounded. Nian Bing finally reacted and reluctantly let go of the Wind Girl's hands. A scorching hot air suddenly spread throughout his body. Nian Bing only felt his body lighten, and the ground under his feet shook slightly. He had already landed on the ground, and the Wind Girl was holding onto his hand. His legs felt weak, and the soreness from his hip bone made Nian Bing temporarily lose the ability to walk. He forced himself to move his body, thinking to himself, riding a horse really isn't a good job. Fortunately, he had a beauty as his companion, otherwise this journey would have been difficult. The Zi Qingjian siblings walked in front of them. Although Zi Qingmeng also looked a little tired, her condition was much better than Nian Bing's. After all, a magician's biggest weakness was their body. The Wind Girl let go of Nian Bing's hand and came behind him, pressing her palm on his lower back. Suddenly, the scorching hot 9-leaf battle chi entered his body, and the air flowed through his meridians, instantly spreading throughout Nian Bing's body. The scorching hot feeling was so comfortable that Nian Bing almost moaned out of comfort. The discomfort in his body immediately disappeared, and his whole body felt warm, indescribably comfortable. He turned to look at the Wind Girl. Although only 4 hours had passed, Nian Bing could clearly feel that his relationship with the Wind Girl had become much closer. "Thank you, I'm much better." The Wind Girl smiled. "What are you thanking me for? I'm not helping you. If I don't adjust your body's condition, how will you cook for me? Didn't you want to show off your cooking skills in front of President Carlo? That way, he'll agree to bring more ordinary food into the mountains." Nian Bing wanted to grab the Wind Girl's hand, but she dodged. The Wind Girl glared at him, and Nian Bing laughed mischievously. "It's all right, there's still a long way to go." His meaning was very clear. Before reaching Sky Swaying City, he could still hug the Wind Girl for a while. The Wind Girl angrily said, "Hurry up and cook." Nian Bing laughed heartily and said, "Yes, sir. I'll definitely complete the mission." With that, he walked towards President Carlo. Zi Qingjian said to Zi Qingmeng, "Go help Nian Bing. With so many people, I'm afraid he won't be able to handle it alone." Zi Qingmeng glanced at her brother, knowing that he hadn't given up on the Wind Girl. She nodded and followed Nian Bing. The Wind Lady didn't avoid the purple purity sword. She walked to a large rock and sat down. The purple purity sword followed her. He took off the broadsword on his back and put it to the side. He took out a water bag and handed it to the Wind Lady. "Miss Wind, drink some water." The Wind Girl smiled and shook her head. "Brother Zi Qingjian, you should also rest for a while. I'm not thirsty, I want to leave some space so we can eat Nian Bing's food later." Zi Qingjian sadly put away his water bag and drank a mouthful before sitting down. "Miss Feng Nu, how did you practice your martial arts to be so powerful?" "I've also practiced martial arts since I was young, but I'm only a great swordsman now," the Wind Girl said. "The cultivation of martial arts needs to be done step by step. Maybe it's because my cultivation method is more correct. You're still young, but you're already a great swordsman, which is already very good. Moreover, I can feel that your martial arts will reach the level of a martial fighter in at most 3 years. If you continue to practice diligently, you'll definitely achieve something." Zi Qingjian looked at the Wind Girl's moving smile and couldn't help but feel a little dazed. "Miss Wind Girl, are we considered friends?" Of course, we're already friends. Zi Qingjian lowered his head. How did you and Yan Bing get to know each other? From the looks of it, you two should be very familiar with each other. The Wind Girl said, It's all right. Yan Bing is a good person and a good cook. We're also friends. Actually, we haven't known each other for very long, less than half a year. Less than half a year? Zi Qingjian's voice had a trace of excitement. The Wind Girl smiled faintly. Although we've only known each other for a short time, we're the same kind of people. We have our own goals and won't change because of other things. He's like this, and so am I. Therefore, we can only be friends, just like you and I. After giving Zi Qingjian a meaningful glance, she closed her blue eyes and didn't say anything else. Zi Qingjian was stunned. Although he was straightforward, he wasn't stupid. He naturally understood the meaning behind the Wind Lady's words. However, he didn't back down because of this. Instead, he felt lucky. In his opinion, perhaps it was because Nian Bing wouldn't cause any trouble for the Wind Lady that the Wind Lady was willing to be closer to him. While Zi Qingjian and the Wind Girl were chatting, Nian Bing displayed his almost perfect cooking skills. When Carlos saw Nian Bing brandishing the shining proud heaven blade and continuously conjuring all kinds of seasonings from his hands, turning the originally boring dry rations into delicious delicacies over the fire, he couldn't help but stare in disbelief. He really couldn't believe his eyes. This was especially true when Nian Bing conjured a large cauldron and used the ice and some condiments to make a steaming hot soup. He practically raised both his hands and feet in support of Nian Bing's idea of bringing all kinds of food and ingredients for the upcoming mission. A simple meal had greatly improved the relationship between Nian Bing and the soldiers of the mercenary corps, conquering their stomach. Although he didn't conquer their hearts, at least these powerful soldiers acknowledged his existence. After the meal, after resting for a while, everyone once again set foot on the road to Heavenly Swaying City. Of course, Nian Bing was still riding with the Wind Lady, and he wrapped his arms around her slender waist with great familiarity. What made the Wind Girl both angry and amused was that he used the excuse that his body wasn't used to long-distance riding as an excuse. His entire body was practically pressed against the Wind Girl's back, making the two of them even more intimate. Nian Bing had also thought it through. It wasn't easy for him to find an opportunity to take advantage of her. If he didn't take full advantage of her, wouldn't it be a huge loss? It would be difficult to find another opportunity like this. With the Wind Girl's beauty, how could Nian Bing not be tempted? Fortunately, he was more restrained this time. His lower body was still quite obedient and didn't raise the flag again. Nian Bing, can you sit up straight? Your body isn't that weak, right? I already helped you clear your meridians when we were eating just now. The Wind Girl said with dissatisfaction. I'm sorry. Today, when I was competing with Senior Zi Xiu in cooking, I overused my mental energy and rushed for half a day. I'm exhausted. I'm a magician. My body can't be compared to people like you who practice martial art. Wind Girl, your battle chi is so strong. Hold on for a while, I'm going to sleep first. After saying that, he went even more overboard and directly rested his head on the Wind Girl's shoulder, breathing in the fragrance of her hair. His heart was filled with joy. The Wind Girl was both embarrassed and angry. She wanted to break free from Nian Bing, but she was afraid that she would fall. Furthermore, his body was constantly emitting heat, causing the Wind Girl's delicate body to go soft. She couldn't use her battle chi on him at all. You scoundrel, hurry up and get up. What are you doing? Nian Bing lazily said. Anyway, we've been hugging for half a day. I'm afraid that most people already think that our relationship is abnormal. Just let me sleep for a while. Wind Girl, you're a bit too skinny, your shoulders are a bit hard. You scoundrel. How do you know my nickname? You pervert, oh, you even know my name. I'm going to throw you down. Then no one will be able to make delicious dishes for you. I'm angry, it's fine. When we reach Sky Wave City, I'll make you a chi-regulating soup. I guarantee that you'll be fine after drinking it. Nian Bing tried his best to hold back his laughter as he felt the Wind Lady's rapid breathing. Waves of tiredness washed over him, and he actually fell asleep in a daze. He had finally found a comfortable position, so he naturally wouldn't change it. The Wind Girl's embarrassment gradually disappeared. Because Nian Bing's body was so close to hers, she could clearly feel that Nian Bing's breathing was steady and long. Scoundrel, he actually fell asleep on my shoulder. Why is there a cold feeling on my shoulder? Turning her head, she angrily discovered that Nian Bing was actually drooling on her shoulder. When the cold wind blew, the cold feeling came from there. Nian Bing, I'm going to kill you. The Wind Girl held the reins tightly. Her mind was constantly changing ways to torture Nian Bing. However, even when they reached Sky Wave City, she didn't do anything. At that moment, although the Wind Girl was angry because of Nian Bing's saliva, she also discovered that Nian Bing's sleeping face gave her a special feeling. His sleeping face was very calm. Only the corner of his mouth revealed a faint smile, as if he was very satisfied. At this moment, his personality didn't change. He was sleeping like a child. No matter what, the Wind Girl couldn't bear to wake him up. The intense shock and pain woke Nian Bing up from his sleep. He rubbed his eyes and looked around in a daze. His surroundings were pitch black. The noise and the neighing of the horses made his mind a little chaotic. Quickly get up, we're here. The Wind Girl's voice sounded in his ears. Hearing this voice, Nian Bing immediately felt much more at ease. Wind Girl, we're here so quickly. I'm still sleepy. Lend me your shoulder for a pillow. Nian Bing got up from the ground and went to find a comfortable pillow. It's so hot. Wind Girl, what are you doing? The sudden heat caused Nian Bing to almost jump up. The Wind Girl came in front of him and grabbed the front of his clothes. She fiercely said, Nian Bing, I didn't expect you to be so bad. Just you wait. Nian Bing blinked and pretended to be confused as he asked, How? How am I bad? The Wind Girl pointed at the saliva mark on her shoulder. Look at it yourself. What did you do yesterday? Nian Bing was stunned. Under the illumination of the Wind Girl's red douqi, he could faintly see a small puddle of water on her shoulder. Could this be my? The Wind Girl pinched his arm hard. Nonsense, who else could it be? How are you going to compensate me? Nian Bing looked at the Wind Girl awkwardly. He thought for a moment and said, How about this, I'll sleep on your other shoulder for a while and make the marks on both sides symmetrical. The visual effect should be better. Without waiting for the Wind Girl to react, Nian Bing turned and ran. At this time, his vision had recovered a little. He discovered that he was at the entrance of an inn. There were 2 lanterns in front of the inn emitting a dim yellow light. Carlo was directing his subordinates to bring the horses into the courtyard to settle down. President Carlo, we're already at Tianshang City. Nian Bing ran in front of him to greet him. Carlo laughed and said, With a beauty being naughty, of course you would feel that it's fast. However, your friend's riding skills are really good. Even our fierce horses are so docile to him. Nian Bing, you really have good luck with women. When it's time to make a move, make a move. Don't waste your youth, hee. Looking at the old Carlo, Nian Bing said awkwardly, Let's talk about this later. When we can beat her, maybe we'll have a chance. Right at this time, a gentle and pleasant voice came from the courtyard. President Carlo, you're here. Uncle Lai and I were afraid that you wouldn't be able to come today. Nian Bing's body shook. This voice was too familiar to him. Before he could react, a graceful figure walked out of the inn. A white fox skin robe wrapped around her charming body, but from her pale face, it could be seen that she had lost a lot of weight. It was the daughter of the president of the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild, Long Ling, known as the Gentle Girl. Nian Bing? Is it really you? Long Ling's face looked even paler. Her eyes were red as she looked at Nian Bing in a daze. Her soft lips trembled slightly. Ling, what happened to you? When Nian Bing saw Long Ling's appearance, He couldn't help but feel a burning pain in his heart. He hurried forward to hold her hand. He discovered that Long Ling's hand was very cold, so cold that it made his heart feel cold. Chapter 57. Long Ling's face flushed red as she forcefully pulled her hands out of Nian Bing's grasp. Taking a step back, she said in a low voice, "Water magician, there is a difference between men and women. Please don't be like this." Nian Bing was stunned for a moment before turning to Carlo and asking, "Ling is also a magician participating in this operation?" Carlo nodded and said, "Yes, High Magician Lion brought Great Magician Long Ling and Great Magician Feng Yun to participate in this operation. You are all part of the same union, so it's better for you to cooperate." Long Ling politely nodded to Carlo and said, "President, rest assured, we will do our best to help you. It's late, I'm going to rest." After saying this, she no longer looked at Nian Bing as she turned and walked towards the courtyard. Carlo looked at Nian Bing with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Is there some misunderstanding between you and Miss Long Ling? Young people, don't let emotional entanglements dampen your spirit." Nian Bing bitterly smiled and shook his head, but he couldn't say anything. The expressions of the knights that hadn't entered the courtyard changed a bit. "Another one, really a pervert." Zi Qingming bumped into Nian Bing before entering the courtyard. Purple Sword Nian Bing sighed. Looking back at Feng Nu, she also followed her sister in. Nian Bing bitterly smiled in his heart. Just who did I provoke? How come in their eyes, I'm like a scoundrel who abandoned me? I'm innocent. Everyone had already entered the courtyard, leaving only Feng Nu and Nian Bing at the entrance. Feng Nu walked to Nian Bing's side and stopped. Seeing his hesitant expression, she smiled and said, "No need to explain anything, we are friends. I choose to believe you." Nian Bing's heart was filled with joy. Finally, there was someone who understood him. But soon his excitement turned into bubbles because Feng Nu emphasized, "We are just friends." As someone who cultivated 9-leaf battle chi, her body emitted a faint layer of cold air. The night was filled with cold air. Nian Bing felt a burst of helplessness in her heart. Let's take it one step at a time. Anyway, I haven't done anything bad. Why should I care about what others think? Silence is gold, silence is gold. The next morning, Carlo announced that they were going to rest for a day. He started to make purchases in Tiandang City before they set off. Nian Bing wrote a simple purchase order for food. She didn't leave her room for the whole day. She was completely in a state of meditation. As night fell, there was a sudden knock on the door. "Nian Bing, it's time for dinner." Zi Qingjian's deep voice sounded from outside the door. Nian Bing took a deep breath and woke up from her meditation. She felt that her body was full of magic power. Yesterday's matter seemed to have become a thing of the past. Whether it was Feng Nu or Long Ling, she couldn't let them affect her goal. Opening the door, Zi Qingjian walked in energetically. "Brother, you didn't eat lunch. What are you doing alone in the room? Let's go. Let's go for dinner. It's ready." President Carlo will also talk about some of the details of this operation. Nian Bing smiled. "Big brother Qingjian, you look pretty good today." Zi Qingjian chuckled. "People are in good spirits. Today, I asked Miss Feng Nu a lot of questions about martial arts. I learned a lot. Miss Feng Nu's talent in martial arts is far from mine." Nian Bing inexplicably felt a bit of sorrow in her heart, but she quickly returned to normal. "Then I'll have to congratulate Big Brother. Sparring with people stronger than you is very beneficial to your own growth." Zi Qingjian closed the door behind him. He solemnly said, "Nian Bing, what is your relationship with that girl from yesterday?" Nian Bing was stunned. She frowned slightly and said, "Big brother, this is my personal matter. I don't want to talk about it." Zi Qingjian said, "That girl looked very weak. It was as if a gust of wind could blow her away. Also, I've seen her a few times today, but I've never seen her smile. That cold feeling was filled with sorrow. Don't tell me this has nothing to do with you. Nian Bing, did you do something wrong to her?" "Enough. Nian Bing's eyes shone with cold light, causing Zi Qingjian to shiver. Big brother Qingjian, I don't want to talk about this. I said before, this is my personal matter. Please don't get involved. Let's go eat. After saying this, she walked around Zi Qingjian and opened the door. Zi Qingjian stood there in a daze. This was the first time he had seen Nian Bing lose her temper. In that instant, an abnormally powerful aura had exploded from Nian Bing. Even with his strength as a great swordsman, he actually found it hard to breathe. Dinner was held in the restaurant. Before Carlo had arrived, the entire restaurant had been reserved by his subordinate. Aside from the restaurant staff, everyone else was from the Frozen Moon mercenary group. The dinner was very sumptuous. There was chicken, duck, and fish. Of course, this food was nothing in Nian Bing's eyes. When he arrived, the table was already full. Nian Bing looked around and saw Li Hua, Long Ling, and that great magician Feng Yun sitting at the head table. There was an empty seat next to Li Hua. Without asking, it was reserved for him. After all, he belonged to the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild. Without hesitation, he strode to the empty seat and greeted Li Hua and the other two before sitting down. Long Ling's expression was very calm. Just as Zi Qingjian said, her body emitted a faint aura of sorrow. The coldness on her body was completely due to her sorrow. He sighed inwardly. Ling, am I really worth it for you to be like this? Long Ling acted as if she didn't see Nian Bing. Her gaze was still looking forward. Li Hua and Feng Yun both nodded to Nian Bing, but no one said anything. Nian Bing was smart, so he naturally knew where the cold treatment came from. However, he didn't mind. He sat there and looked around while waiting for his meal to be served. Feng Nu and Feng Nu were sitting at a table not far from him. At this time, Zi Qingjian had also walked in and sat down next to Feng Nu. Nian Bing was very calm. Not only was his expression calm, but his heart was also calm. In his mind, he was thinking about the situation of his magic cultivation. He didn't feel the slightest bit of dissatisfaction because of the current awkward atmosphere. Alright, everyone is here. Everyone, let's eat. This is our last dinner before we leave. Tomorrow morning, we will enter the heaven-shaking mountain range. The horses and unnecessary things will be left in this restaurant. I have already paid for this restaurant for 3 months. If we can successfully complete the mission, we will be able to return within 3 months. For this mission, it can be said that our Frozen Moon mercenary group has turned out in full force. We have also obtained the support of the Empire's Magician Guild. I have full confidence that we can complete this mission. However, there is one thing I must remind everyone in advance. Although we are strong, there are many unknown dangers in the heaven-shaking mountain range. If anyone is careless and drags everyone down, then don't blame me for being merciless. Everything will be for the benefit of the group. I won't say anything else. Most of you are old members of the mercenary group. I believe in you. Carlo's eyes radiated power as he looked at his subordinate. His body emitted a powerful aura. Nian Bing glanced at Carlo and found that there was a 40-year-old middle-aged man sitting next to him. The man on the left had a cold expression. He was wearing the same mercenary leather armor, but it was very harmonious on his body. Although age was unforgiving, one could still vaguely see his youth. It was a pity that his handsome face was ruined by a deep scar on the left side of his face. The man on the right was a woman. She was also the only person in the entire Frozen Moon mercenary group who didn't wear a mercenary's uniform. The fiery red long skirt on her ice bucket-like body didn't look harmonious at all. Her short brown hair was disheveled and that pancake-like face was covered in rouge. Even so, it couldn't hide the large pockmarks on her face. When her huge body moved slightly, a layer of rouge would fall off. Looking at her, perhaps anyone's appetite would be reduced. Feeling Nian Bing's gaze, that middle-aged man didn't have any expression, but that bucket's eyes lit up. Nian Bing revealed a smile and the rouge on her face suddenly had a few more cracks. Her yellow teeth were uneven and Nian Bing almost spat out the tea she just drank. She forced a smile and hurriedly turned her gaze to other places. The fine hairs on her body were all standing up. It was finally time to eat. Nian Bing unhurriedly ate the dishes in front of him. With the previous experience, he didn't dare to casually look around. Right at this time, Carlo walked to his side and said with a smile, "Nian Bing, come with me. I'll introduce you to our mercenary group's 2 vice leaders." Nian Bing bitterly smiled in his heart. Without guessing, he already knew who the vice leader was. Under Carlo's lead, Nian Bing followed him to Carlo's table. Carlo pointed at the middle-aged man that Nian Bing had seen before and said, "This is our Frozen Moon mercenary group's vice leader, Jia Te Lin. His martial skills are exquisite and much stronger than mine." Jia Te Lin's gaze met with Nian Bing's and simply spat out 2 words, "Hello." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Hello, I am Nian Bing. Go, go, go. Jia Te Lin, go to the side. Don't obstruct me from introducing myself." The pungent fragrance almost made Nian Bing faint. Jia Te Lin was pushed to the side by Bucket, but his expression didn't change at all. Bucket chuckled. Her height was actually about the same as Nian Bing, but her figure was enough to hold 4 Nian Bing. When she stood there, she was like a wall. She was probably heavier than Zi Qing's sword. "Hello, little brother Nian Bing. My name is Huarui. You can also call me Ruerue. I am also the vice leader of the Frozen Moon mercenary group. We should get closer in the future." When Nian Bing heard the 2 words Ruerue, he felt a chill in his heart. If Huarui looked like you, there wouldn't be any flowers on the continent. "Hello, Miss Huarui. Nice to meet you." Hearing Nian Bing call her Miss, Huarui was immediately overjoyed. He, little brother Nian Bing, you have good taste. You can tell at a glance that I am still a girl. I am still unmarried." As she spoke, she continued to throw coquettish glances at Nian Bing. Nian Bing lowered his head and thought to himself, "It's not your fault that you are ugly, but you are wrong to come out and scare people." Carlo naturally saw Nian Bing's uneasiness and hurriedly said, "All right, everyone, let's eat." When he returned to his seat, Nian Bing had no appetite at all. At this moment Li Hua, who was beside him, suddenly said, "Nian Bing, I heard from President Carlo that you guys met on the way here. Who are the people who came with you?" Nian Bing said, "They are all my friends. They are also warriors." Li Hua glanced at Feng Nu and said, "Is that girl your girlfriend?" Nian Bing suddenly felt annoyed. Why was it that the more he wanted to avoid emotional entanglements, the more trouble there was? "No, she is just an ordinary friend of mine. You guys eat. I have no appetite. I will leave first." After that, he got up and left without waiting for Li Hua to say more. When he was about to leave, the dragon spirit's gaze finally swept over him once. Seeing Nian Bing leave, Carlo wanted to chase after him, but considering that there were so many people in the dining room, he had to shake his head helplessly. Back in the room, Nian Bing sat on the bed again, closed his eyes, and entered the state of meditation again. Since he had left the Ice Moon Empire, he had no more scruples now. He held the sigh of the Ice Goddess and the roar of the God of Fire in his hands, and quickly gathered the ice and fire magic elements in the air to himself. There was no possibility of any shortcuts to the growth of magic power. Only through continuous practice and increasing one's magic power could one improve one's strength. The stronger one's magic power was, the more the magic power in the air would be affected when using magic. This was also the reason why there was such a huge difference in strength between magicians of one level. After these days of research on magic and the guidance of the Dark Knight Archmage, Nian Bing had changed the way he meditated. He no longer absorbed the magic power in the air through every part of his body like before. Instead, he absorbed the magic elements in the air through his 2 peerless sword. After filtering and amplifying them through the Ice Goddess Stone and the God of Fire Stone, he channeled them into his body through the palms of his hands. There were several advantages to this. First, through the filtering of the two highest quality gems, the instability of the magic elements was very well suppressed. When the magic elements passed through the two gems, they became denser and purer. This saved Nian Bing the experience of controlling the magic that entered his body. Secondly, through the absorption method of the 2 points, when the magic was channeled into the vortex of ice and fire in his body, it could achieve a better balance. Moreover, it could increase the rotation speed of the vortex during the meditation process. After using this meditation method, Nian Bing clearly felt that the speed of his magic progress had increased by a lot. One night was equivalent to 4 or 5 days of practice. He firmly believed that as long as he persevered, he would be able to enter the realm of Archmage sooner. When his 2 types of magic power were full, it would be time for him to seek a new breakthrough. After an unknown amount of time, Nian Bing, who was in the middle of meditation, suddenly heard the sound of knocking on the door. He hurriedly controlled his mental strength to stop receiving magic power from the outside world and woke up. Who is it? At this time, it was already late at night. The night fog filled the air outside the window. Nian Bing stood up and closed the curtains before walking to the door. Open the door quickly, it's me. A beautiful and pleasant voice sounded outside the door. Nian Bing's heart stirred. It was actually Feng Nu opening the door. He saw Feng Nu standing quietly at the door, looking at him with a smile. Why are you here so late? Nian Bing asked in surprise. Feng Nu smiled and said, What, you're not going to invite me in? Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, No need, it's so late. Why are you, a girl, in my room? Feng Nu snorted and said, Rumors stop with the wise. I'm not afraid, what are you afraid of? Saying that, she pushed Nian Bing aside and went straight into his room. Nian Bing helplessly closed the door. He saw Feng Nu go to the table and put a small cloth bag on it. Eat quickly. You didn't eat anything at night. Are you angry? What did that magician say to you? Nian Bing looked at the snacks in the cloth bag. He couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He walked a few steps to Feng Nu's side and reached out to hug her. Thank you, Feng Nu, his figure flashed. Feng Nu ran to the side with a red face. Don't touch me. Eat quickly. Nian Bing awkwardly put his hand on the table. The Phoenix Maiden picked up the snack and put it into her mouth. She sat down on a chair and looked at Nian Bing with interest. Nian Bing ate the snacks while saying, Feng Nu, don't you want to ask me what is the relationship between me and Ling Er? Feng Nu smiled and shook his head. This is your own privacy. If you want to tell me, you will tell me. Otherwise, what's the use of me asking? Nian Bing sighed and said, Actually, it doesn't matter if I tell you. I met Ling Er after I met you. Then, he simply told how he met Long Ling and how he joined the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Union. When he finished speaking, the desserts brought by the Phoenix Girl were all in his stomach. In that case, you're quite charming. That Ling Er girl is quite beautiful. Why don't you think about it? Feng Nu still had a smile on her face. Nian Bing unhappily said, Then I am also quite handsome. Do you want to think about it? Feng Nu's face turned red and said, That's impossible. We are people from 2 different worlds. Nian Bing sighed and said, I have rejected 2 girls. Actually, they are very outstanding. To be able to get one of them as my wife is already lucky for me. But I can't. I want revenge. My enemy is so strong and I still have to fulfill my master's wish. My heart can't be settled so quickly. So, I can only choose to reject them. I don't want to implicate them. Before taking revenge, feelings are a luxury for me. Feng Nu nodded and said, I understand. Maybe you are right. Because I am the same as you, I don't have the qualifications to talk about feelings. But, girls are the most sensitive to feelings. Since you can't have a result with them, then don't tease them to avoid more misunderstandings. You know, when you are concentrating on cooking, you are the most attractive. Nian Bing smiled and said, Then, did I attract you? Feng Nu unhappily said, Attract your head. I haven't settled the debt with you yet. You have to compensate me for my clothes. Nian Bing's eyes turned. Okay, I will compensate you. But I don't have money. How about this, I will cook for you for a lifetime to compensate you. How about it? Feng Nu snorted and said, Then you can be my servant. I just reminded you not to tease girls and you're doing it again. Nian Bing smiled and said, That's because I know you won't be fooled. It's late, you should go back and rest. Otherwise, I will really act like a hooligan. In front of a beauty, my willpower is not that strong. Feng Nu provocatively curled her lips. Aren't you afraid that I will beat you until you look for your teeth on the ground? Don't forget, your strength is not enough to use force against me. Nian Bing's eyes flashed and said, Don't forget, I am a magician. Although my overall strength is not as good as yours, but if you give me a chance, I have 70% confidence that I can restrain you. Feng Nu stared blankly for a moment and said, I want to try. Nian Bing's confidence made her a little more curious. After all, Do Qi was one of the best ways to break through magic. She was very clear that Nian Bing's magic was not comparable to her own 9-leaf Do Qi. But he said it so confidently, which made Feng Nu a little suspicious. Her understanding of magic was not deep, but her desire for strength was not below Nian Bing. Nian Bing strangely smiled and said, You really want to try? Then if I restrain you, I can't guarantee that I won't do anything out of line. Feng Nu confidently said, I don't believe you. How about we make a bet? Nian Bing's heroic spirit increased. Okay, you tell me what to bet, I accept. The Phoenix girl thought for a moment and said, I'll give you a chance to release your magic. I won't interrupt your incantation. If your magic can restrain me, then I'll write off what happened last night. Otherwise, you will have to promise me 3 conditions in the future. Nian Bing laughed. Your calculations are not bad. But, this way you will be taking advantage of me. If I successfully restrain you, you will have to return the kiss that I owe you last time. If I lose, I will promise you 3 conditions. Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing with some surprise. Are you really sure? You really want to bet? Nian Bing smiled and said, Even if I promise you 3 conditions, it's nothing. Why are you regretting it? Feng Nu's eyes flashed and said, Okay, I will bet with you. Where are we? Nian Bing pointed to the ground and said, My room will do. Let me release a spell, right? Then you sit first. I will start preparing. Don't worry, before I release the spell, I will definitely remind you. Feng Nu nodded and sat at the side, but her eyes were locked on Nian Bing, waiting for him to make his move. Nian Bing thought for a moment and chanted an incantation, casting a blizzard on himself. With his amazing control of magic, he controlled the blizzard to an extremely small area, floating in the air, facing the ground. With a wave of both hands, the Morning Dew dagger and the Zheng Yang dagger appeared in his hand. Under the effect of magic, the whole room was filled with red and blue light. Without any hesitation, Nian Bing's hands moved at the same time. The 2 daggers each transformed into a ball of light, slashing towards the ground. Magic array? You also know magic array? Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing in surprise. Her original confidence could not help but drop a little. Nian Bing did not answer. His mind was completely focused on the daggers in his hands. In the flash of the daggers, a blue and a red equilateral triangle appeared on the ground. They intertwined to form a magic hexagram. The red and blue colors intertwined, emitting a huge magic aura. Nian Bing did not stop his movement. He drew 2 circles on the outside of the hexagram, and then quickly engraved various complicated symbols on the circles and the hexagram. Although his movements were very fast, there was not a trace of carelessness. Every time there was an additional symbol on the complex magic array, the aura of the entire magic array would be stronger by a bit. The strange thing was, although the magic aura was strong, it was limited to the magic array. Feng Nu, who was outside the array, could see that this magic array was not ordinary, but she could not feel its real power. Her heart tightened, and she quietly mobilized her 9 abandonment do-chi, maintaining her state at its best. The time was much longer than expected. Sweat constantly dripped from Nian Bing's forehead, but soon it was swallowed by the red aura in the magic array. Nian Bing's face had become somewhat pale, and the light emitted by the 2 peerless blades was not as strong as before. Obviously, the process of constructing this magic array consumed a lot of his magic power. Suddenly, Nian Bing murmured a few words of incantation, and his eyes shone brightly. The magic power that was weakened by a lot suddenly skyrocketed. The daggers flashed several times, and the magic array on the ground rose into the air. The next moment, everything suddenly disappeared. The magic array on the ground completely lost its luster, and only the traces made by the daggers could be seen. Nian Bing gasped for breath, put away the daggers, and sat on the bed. Although he looked extremely tired, his spirit was extremely excited, and his eyes were shining. It seemed that he was more excited than when he completed the carving of the 9 dragons to the Supreme Cauldron. This actually works. That's great. That's wonderful. Feng Nu doubtfully said, Nian Bing, what's wrong with you? Didn't you say that you want to seal me? What kind of magic array did you just draw? Nian Bing smiled and said, You will know if you try. I will use this magic array. You just need to walk to the center of the magic array. If you are safe and sound, then I will lose. Feng Nu half believed and half doubtfully stood up, took a deep breath, and her whole body was suddenly covered by a layer of faint red light. Her eyes moved, trying to see something from Nian Bing's expression, but Nian Bing just smiled and did not show any special expression. Feng Nu's figure floated forward. Although she was very curious about this magic array, she did not believe that it had the ability to trap her, but she still did not have the slightest carelessness. She raised her do-chi to 80%, and then landed on the magic array. Suddenly, a huge suction force came from the ground. Feng Nu was startled, and quickly urged her do-chi to rush down to her feet, trying to break free from the magic array. But she did not urge her do-chi, and suddenly she was surprised to find that her do-chi seemed to have found a huge vent, and flocked out from under her feet. The magic circle on the ground shone brightly. It was mainly red in color, and it instantly wrapped around the Phoenix Maiden's body. An abnormally strong suction force kept eroding her body. Under the strange suction force, her combat power was disappearing at an astonishing speed. Feng Nu was a little panicked. Although she was skilled and bold, but she still could not help but have a heart of fear. After all, she had painstakingly cultivated the 9 abandonment do-chi since she was a child, and with the full support of the elders, she had today's achievements. If it continued like this, her do-chi would completely disappear, then wouldn't her many years of cultivation be in vain? Thinking of this, Feng Nu's delicate body trembled a little. She desperately wanted to raise her do-chi to the realm of holy do-chi to get rid of this strange magic array, but her do-chi had already been consumed too much. Excessive urging would only cause her do-chi to be absorbed faster by the magic array. The red and blue light was like a bottomless abyss, constantly swallowing her do-chi. Nian Bing, what did you do? Quickly let me go, my do-chi is. Feng Nu felt weak because of the loss of a large amount of do-chi. She looked at Nian Bing somewhat pleadingly. She believed that Nian Bing would not harm her, but what was happening now was beyond her imagination. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, Does this mean that you admit defeat? Feng Nu opened her mouth, just as she wanted to say something. The last trace of do-chi in her body was sucked out. Her body went soft and suddenly fell on the magic array. Nian Bing smiled and walked into the magic array. Even Feng Nu, who was close to the realm of swordsmen, could not contend against the magic array, but it did not harm him at all. He picked up Feng Nu and let her lean on his shoulder. Now you should know that magic is a very strange ability. Although my magic is not as strong as your martial arts, but under certain special circumstances, I have the possibility to restrain you. This magic array is a special magic array passed down from ancient times. I just wanted to give it a try, but I didn't expect that it would really succeed. Tears flowed down Feng Nu's face. She said somewhat sluggishly, my Dochi, my Dochi. Nian Bing smiled and said, silly girl, I will return your Dochi. But, before that, I have to get back the bet that I won. Otherwise, when you recover, I won't be able to contend with you. As he said that, he hugged Feng Nu's elastic body and lowered his head towards her. When Feng Nu heard Nian Bing say that her Dochi can be recovered, she was immediately overjoyed. Her spirit did not have time to recover, but the masculine aura continued to approach her. At this time, she was so weak that she could not even move a finger, let alone resist. Her face suddenly turned red, and she subconsciously closed her eyes, waiting for the lips that were about to come. After a long time, although the masculine aura was still strong, but the kiss that she imagined did not come. She opened her eyes strangely, and was surprised to find that Nian Bing was right in front of her. His face was only 3 inches away from her, and she could hear his breath. Nian Bing seemed to be a little distressed as he shook his head. Forget it, if you didn't want to let me kiss you, how can I force you? As he said that, he muttered a few words of incantation, and the magic array suddenly began to change. The rich red light was like a river flowing into the sea, and rushed towards Feng Nu's body. Feng Nu only felt her whole body shake, and the familiar Do-Chi returned from every corner of her body. The feeling of strength gradually became stronger, and she was so excited that her body trembled a little. The feeling of recovering Do-Chi was so wonderful. Chapter 58. Nian Bing hugged Feng Nu as she felt the changes in the magic formation. Everything was as she had predicted. Aside from the fact that it was a little difficult to set up such a powerful magic formation, there were no flaws at all. It was completely under her control. The recovery of Do-Chi was even faster than when it was lost. When Feng Nu recovered to her peak state, she seemed to have forgotten that she had swordsman's strength. She was still in Nian Bing's arms like a well-behaved kitten. Nian Bing walked out of the magic formation with Feng Nu in her arms. Isn't my embrace very warm? A red figure flashed and Feng Nu escaped from Nian Bing's arms. She said in a slightly annoyed tone, You only know how to take advantage of me. Nian Bing smiled and said, Now that I've won, shouldn't you let me kiss you? Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing strangely and said, Then why didn't you kiss me just now? Since you didn't seize the opportunity, it means that you gave up. Nian Bing, what kind of magic formation is this? How come I didn't even have a chance to resist? Nian Bing looked at the complicated patterns on the ground and whispered, This is a very special magic formation that has been passed down since ancient times. When I first saw it in the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild's library, I thought that it was impossible to successfully construct this magic formation because it was too complicated. Moreover, there couldn't be a single mistake. Some parts were contradictory, and there were also problems with the intertwining of the magic symbols. However, I suddenly thought it through. If this magic formation was drawn with one hand, it would indeed be impossible to complete, but if it was drawn with 2 hands at the same time, it would be possible to complete it. Therefore, I considered using the same origin of ice and fire to complete this magic formation. I have thought about it countless times in the past, but today is the first time I put it into practice. I didn't expect to succeed so easily. At this point, he paused and looked at the magic formation with infatuation. Feng Nu, do you know the name of this magic formation that has been passed down since ancient times? It was called the magical illusory space. I am the master of space, and I can convert it into 2 types. One is release, and the other is absorption. Feng Nu didn't understand. Can you explain it more clearly? What is release and what is absorption? Nian Bing's eyes sparkled with wisdom as she said, Simply put, this magic array was specially used for sealing during ancient times. Because it was extremely difficult to depict. Therefore, very few people could actually use it. The magic array was completed. It would absorb the magical elements in the outside world to replenish itself, and its energy output was completely under my control. To put it simply, if I was the one casting the spell, the power of the spell would increase by at least 30%. If someone else were to step into the spell's power would increase by at least 30%. You've experienced the situation just now. It can completely devour all of your energy. However, the possibility of that happening is very small because everyone can sense the aura emitted by this magic array. If we weren't betting, would you have stepped into this magic array so easily? Therefore, the greater function of this magic array is to amplify my own power. Feng Nu doubtfully said, I still don't understand. I cultivate Do Qi, not magic. Why can't it absorb my Do Qi and then return it later? Nian Bing smiled and said, all kinds of energy in the world are conserved. Although magic and Do Qi are two different forms of energy, they are still energy. For example, my fire magic and your 9 Li Do Qi have the same characteristic of fire. My magic array is based on ice and fire, so it can display the greatest effect on your body. After absorbing your Do Qi, you won't really lose it, but you'll be affected by the weakening effect of the magical space, making you feel as if you've lost your Do Qi. In fact, the magical space is only extracting your Do Qi and completely isolating your body from the outside world, giving you an illusion. Once you're out of the magical array, even if I don't help you, your Do Qi will automatically recover within half an hour. Feng Nu thought for a moment and said, so to say, with this magic array, your strength will greatly increase? Humph, this is the only time you'll be fooled. You won't have another chance in the future. Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, only one chance is enough. You're my friend. If you were an enemy, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy to escape. However, this magic array also has a lot of flaws. Not only does it take a long time to draw, but the failure rate is also very high. In addition, it needs to eliminate more than 90% of my magical power. So, it can't be used normally. Feng Nu smiled and said, isn't that simple? Just dig out the ground in this room and put it in a magic item with storage space ability. Nian Bing laughed and said, how can it be so easy? Once the magic array is formed, it can't be moved. Otherwise, not only will it lose its original effect, there's also the possibility of magic explosion. When I was learning this magic array, I thought that using it to defend the city is the best way. As for other things, it's not very useful, unless my magical power is strong enough to draw this magic array easily. Feng Nu stared at Nian Bing and said, you took my Do Qi with this broken magic array, I'm not convinced. However, I won't act shamelessly. A figure flashed. Nian Bing only felt a delicate fragrance in his face. His lips were covered with a gentle fragrance. Just when he wanted to grab this wonderful feeling, the warmth had already disappeared. The door was open, Feng Nu had already left. In the whole room, only Nian Bing was left. Looking at the open door, Nian Bing shook his head with a bitter smile. Feng Nu, oh Feng Nu, do you know? The more time I spend with you, the more I can't control my impulses. Early morning in winter was the coldest time of the day. Nian Bing awoke from his meditation. With the help of the formation he had drawn last night, Nian Bing's transcendence energy had completely recovered. He opened the window, and the cold air rushed in. The breath he exhaled turned into faint smoke and dissipated with the cold wind. What cold weather! Although he had two kinds of magic, but in this incomparably cold weather, as a magician, he was still not used to it. Unfortunately, he didn't even have a thick layer of clothing. When the air in the room became a little fresher, he closed the window. He put on his coarse cloth inside and put on the ice great magician's robe issued by the Union. Feeling the ice element flowing on the magic robe, he cast an ice body spell on himself, so he didn't feel cold anymore. The mercenaries of the Frozen Moon mercenary group were all up early in the morning. Under the command of Carlo and the two deputy leaders, they prepared their own things. Each of them carried a small bag and a standard samurai sword on their back, more than 30 people. Unexpectedly, they didn't make too much noise. The strange thing was, in the courtyard of the restaurant there were 4 similar strange objects. In the middle was a chair, and on both sides were connected by a long and thick bamboo pole. It looked a little strange. Nian Bing, you're up. I was going to call you after everything was ready. Go eat some breakfast, we'll be leaving soon. Looking at Carlo's confident smile, Nian Bing pointed to the strange thing in the courtyard and said, President, what is this thing for? Carlo smiled and said, It was originally 3 places. You came. I asked someone to make one more. This is specially prepared for you magicians. The heavenly shaking mountain is undeveloped, and the road is rugged and difficult for you magicians. If you rely on magic to move forward, it will consume a lot of your magic power, so I specially prepared this kind of thing for you to use as a means of transportation. This was invented by the Longmu Empire. It's called a sliding pole. You will feel very comfortable sitting on it. With our warriors carrying it, not only can it speed up the journey, it can also save you a lot of physical strength. Nian Bing secretly praised Carlo's thoughtfulness in her heart, but she said, President, this isn't very good. How can we trouble the warrior brothers? Carlo smiled and said, It's not troublesome. When it comes to critical times, we still need to rely on you magicians to save our lives. For us, you 4 magicians are important life-saving treasures. After 2 hours, Nian Bing's group finally set off. This time, the Frozen Moon mercenary group had a total of 33 people. Among them, there were 3 martial fighters, 30 great sword master-level warriors, and 4 magicians including Zi Qingmeng, Feng Nu and Nian Bing. The group had a total of 40 people. When they came that night, they didn't notice this city. After leaving the restaurant, Nian Bing found that this heavenly shaking city was pitifully small compared to other big cities. Even from the east wall, they could see the west wall directly. There weren't any big shops in the entire city. On the surface, most of the residents in the city made a living by hunting. Outside the city, they could see the gray mountain range in the distance. They couldn't see the end of it at a glance, and some of the peaks were covered by thick clouds. The feeling of sitting on the pole was very comfortable. 2 great sword master-level warriors carried the pole, and the pole was very stable. Apart from the cold, this wasn't a mission, it was simply a pleasure. The entire mercenary group was neat and orderly. Carlo was at the front, and the 30 mercenaries surrounded the 4 magicians in the center. The 2 vice leaders and Feng Nu walked at the back of the group. It could be said that this was a small battle formation. Long Ling sat on the pole expressionlessly, wearing a thick white fur coat. Li Hua and Feng Yun also wore thick leather coat. Among the 4 magicians, Nian Bing was the most shabby. The speed of the warriors was very fast. Although it looked like they were walking, every step they took was more than 3 meters. Although they couldn't compare to horses, they weren't much slower. The scenery on both sides of the road constantly flew by, and the cold wind blew. Nian Bing's ice body spell couldn't withstand it. Although the fire element magic could produce a large amount of heat, it could not last long. He had no choice but to cast the ice body spell on himself. He also took out the righteous Yang saber and put it in his pocket to keep warm. Only then did he feel better. He regretted that he should have bought thicker clothes before he came out. Under the guidance of the warriors, 2 hours later, they had already entered the range of the sky-shaking mountain range. In the winter, the mountain was bare. Occasionally, they could hear some birds chirping. The entire mountain gave off a lifeless feeling. Not long after they entered the mountain range, Carlos stopped at a valley where they could take shelter from the wind. Everyone, take a break before continuing. Slide the pole and change positions. Stay alert. Placing the poles on the ground, Nian Bing and the other 3 walked down. The warriors guarded every important corner of the area. Carlo came to Li Hua's side and took out something that looked like a map from his chest. He discussed something with Li Hua in a low voice. Nian Bing was also happy to be free. He took out his cauldron from his space ring and called for the purple purity sword. He blasted a hole in the ground with his fighting aura and gathered ice element. He filled the cauldron with ice and used his flame technique to heat up the cauldron. After a while, the ice melted under the heat of the fire and gradually became warm. Nian Bing continued to maintain his magic as he said, "It's such a cold day. Let's all drink some hot water so that we can continue our journey later." No matter how strong a person's body was, it was still a wonderful thing to be able to drink some hot water in winter. The ice boiled. Feng Yun came to Nian Bing's side and took out a stack of bowls from his space magic item. "Nian Bing, let me help you. Your magic is amazing." Feng Yun was an earth magician and was best at defense. Nian Bing nodded to him and took out a spoon from the space ring. She filled each bowl with hot water and called everyone to drink. Carlo's laughter sounded. "Nian Bing, you're really a good logistician. It's good to have hot water in this cold weather. Come, I have some good tea leaves. Put them in and boil them to enhance the taste." "No, you can't put tea leaves." Nian Bing stopped Carlo and said, "Plain water is the most nourishing. Although tea is good, it accelerates the body's metabolism and makes it easier to get hungry and overexcited. Plain water is better. Your tea leaves can be used as seasoning. I can use them when I cook." Everyone drank the hot water. The warriors of the mercenary group already saw Nian Bing as one of their own. Everyone readily accepted a magician like her. After all, the first thing that Nian Bing bought was their stomach. After drinking some hot water, Nian Bing felt much better. Suddenly, her whole body felt cold. She subconsciously looked to the left. At the same time, there were two other people who did the same. One was Feng Nu, and the other was the bucket-shaped Hua Pistol. Hua Pistol's voice was like a broken gong as she let out a low roar, displaying a speed that was completely disproportionate to her body. She shot out like a huge ball of meat, heading towards the hill she had seen earlier. Carlo reacted quickly and shouted, "Protect the magician." A red figure flashed. The first one to arrive at Nian Bing's side was Feng Nu. Nian Bing and Feng Nu looked at each other and whispered, "You felt it?" Feng Nu nodded and said, "I'm afraid this time we've really hit a wall. I'm very familiar with that aura. It's very likely the race I told you about last time." Just a moment ago, Nian Bing and Feng Nu both had the feeling that they were being watched. Nian Bing's magic was not enough to produce this feeling. He only discovered it because the Zheng Yang saber in his arms suddenly became hot and the magic in his body fluctuated unstably. Soon, Hua Pistol's figure flew back. The makeup on her face had decreased a lot because of the rapid ejection. She came to Carlo's side and said in a low voice, "I didn't see anyone." Carlo frowned and said, "You didn't see? Can you tell if it's a human or a beast?" Hua Pistol shook her head and said, "It's hard to say. However, can a human really be so fast? My speed is already very fast, but I didn't even see a human hair. Unless it's a swordsman, but there are only a few swordsmen on the continent. How could they run to this kind of desolate place? It's very likely that it's a magic beast that specializes in speed. It's normal for there to be magic beasts in this kind of mountain. It shouldn't be a problem if we defend carefully. Carlo, let's move as soon as possible and shorten the time to avoid any changes." Carlo nodded and said, "Let's go. Everyone, prepare to defend. Especially pay attention to protect the four magicians. If there's any danger, immediately send out a warning." After starting the journey again, the atmosphere of the mercenary group clearly became tense. The group's original tight formation became a little more scattered. This way they could control a larger area and prevent an unknown enemy from sneaking up on them. From early morning until noon, the entire mercenary group had completely entered the depths of the sky-shaking mountain range. The feeling from the beginning did not appear again. Everything became normal again. Nian Bing kept his eyes closed and released his spiritual force. Relying on his spiritual force to perceive the outside world, it was actually clearer than using his eyes. Even the wind blowing in the surrounding grass could not escape the gaze of his spiritual force. After listening to Feng Nu's words, he still felt that something was wrong. Although the feeling of being watched had disappeared, it seemed that he could still feel that someone was watching him from afar. What exactly was the race that Feng Nu spoke of? The mountain road was getting more and more rugged. In front of them, 4 warriors were constantly chopping the withered brambles on the road with their long swords. Surrounded by the warriors around them, they continued to move forward. Suddenly, Li Hua's voice sounded, "Everyone, stop for a moment. The great source of all living things. Please lend me your flowing vision, spread it all over the world, and search for that mysterious aura. Eyes of eternal life." The faint blue light continued to condense toward Li Hua, and the aura of the water element in the air clearly became stronger. Nian Bing, who was familiar with all kinds of magic, secretly exclaimed, "This is the 8th grade water magic, Eyes of Eternal Life." The blue light became stronger and stronger. Li Hua raised his short magic staff. Wrapped in the faint blue light, his body emitted a holy aura. The magic staff pointed forward. The rich blue light rushed into the ground, and the clear blue light continued to spread to the surroundings. Li Hua kept chanting in a low voice. He was like a fountain of water, constantly emitting circles of ripples. As the blue light continued to expand, everyone present clearly felt a gentle energy, as if touching their bodies. The energy gradually drifted, and everyone's senses were strengthened several times. Nian Bing knew that Li Hua must have discovered something. Otherwise, he would not use this 8th grade water magic at the cost of a large amount of magic power. The function of the Eyes of Eternal Life was very obvious. Not only could it increase the senses of his companions in a large area, but it could also observe all the aura of life within the range of the magic. Water was the source of life. As long as there was water, the Eyes of Eternal Life would not lose its effect. The blue light disappeared. Li Hua closed his eyes and stopped chanting. Everyone's eyes were focused on him, waiting in silence. Suddenly, Li Hua's whole body spasmed, and without warning, he collapsed on the pole. His whole body kept twitching, and white foam came out of his mouth. The aura of life quickly disappeared. Nian Bing was very close to Li Hua. Seeing this, she was shocked. She hurriedly jumped down from her pole and came to Li Hua's side. She grabbed his hand and transferred her pure magic into Li Hua's body. At the same time, her expression became serious. Li Hua had read about what had happened to Li Hua in a magic book. When a magician used a probing spell to explore the surrounding environment, they would suffer a backlash if they encountered a counterattack of mental strength that was much greater than their own. With Li Hua's strength as an archmage, even a magus at the level of archmage would not be strong enough to cause a backlash from a magic of the 8th grade. It seemed that not only was there a hidden enemy in the Tiandang Mountains, but the enemy's strength was far beyond their expectations. Long Ling held Li Hua's other hand. Ice and water came from the same source. She and Nian Bing transferred ice magic into Li Hua's body, hoping to help him break free from the backlash. With the help of the 2 great magicians, Li Hua's twitching gradually stopped, but he still did not wake up. Nian Bing hesitated for a moment. She waved her right hand, and the sigh of the ice goddess appeared in her palm. She placed the ice goddess stone on Li Hua's forehead, and then transferred her ice magic into Li Hua's body through the stone. At the same time, she took out the box containing the holy light stone and placed it on Li Hua's chest. One was to wake him up, and the other was to stabilize his mind. Under the effect of the 2 peerless gems, Li Hua finally let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. "Teacher Li Hua, how are you? What did you see that caused such a strong backlash?" Nian Bing couldn't wait to ask the question in her heart. Long Ling took out a handkerchief from her bosom and wiped the filth from Li Hua's mouth. She said in a low voice, "Let Teacher Li Hua rest first." Li Hua shook his head. Feeling the magic power from Nian Bing, he forced a smile. "Thank you. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know how I died. It was too scary." It was a red color that couldn't be seen clearly. However, it was filled with an incomparably powerful aura. When I tried to explore the secret with my water magic power, I couldn't feel anything. My magic power was greatly shaken, and the magic power I released seemed to be about to collapse. Nian Bing said in a low voice, "Where did you find this place?" Li Hua said, "It was in the center of the sky-shaking mountain range. Just now I suddenly felt that something was wrong. You know, ice and water have a very strong sensitivity to fire. On this cold day, I suddenly felt my whole body heat up. It was as if the aura of the fire element was being controlled around us by someone. In addition to what happened before, I decided to carry out a large-scale investigation. But I didn't expect that when the magic had just started, I would almost die from the backlash." Nian Bing turned her gaze to Carlo and said, "President, the place recorded on your treasure map wouldn't be the center of this mountain range, right?" Carlo smiled bitterly. "I also hope not, but it is the truth. According to the treasure map, the location of the treasure is in a mountain in the center of the Tiandang Mountains. We can only check the direction first. With our current speed, it will take about 3 days to reach there. However, since the magician Li Hua discovered the danger, we have to think carefully." Beside Carlo, Bucket Huare snorted and said, "What's there to think about? Maybe the magician Li Huare only found a volcano. Can you say that the volcano's energy is not enough? Let's not worry about it here. Let's talk about it when we get there. Even if there is danger, what are we afraid of? We have so many people. If we can't beat them, can't we run? This time, we spent a lot of time and energy on this mission. Are we going to give up halfway?" Gatling said, "I agree with Huare. We can't give up easily because of a warning sign." Carlo said, "I don't mean to give up. I just hope that everyone can be more careful. This way we can complete the mission better. It's already noon. Everyone rest here first. Let's also let the magician Li Hua rest." Nian Bing looked at the gloomy Li Hua and whispered, "Teacher Li Hua, could that be a volcano?" Li Hua thought for a while and said, "I can't be sure, but what I can be sure of is that it is indeed a huge amount of fire energy. Nian Bing, this mission seems to be more difficult than expected. You have to promise me one thing. If the danger is too great for us to handle, you have to protect Ling and leave here no matter what. This is what I promised the president. Now it seems that I can't recover my magic power at all without 2 days. I'll leave this matter to you." Nian Bing looked up at Long Ling. She didn't seem to hear Li Hua's words. "Teacher Li Hua, don't worry. You don't need to remind me. I will try my best to protect Ling. It's just that my strength is too weak. I may not be able to meet your expectations." Li Hua smiled and said, "Do your best and leave it to fate. Alas, if the magic hadn't been broken just now, I could have explored more of the surrounding situation. Now we can only move forward recklessly. I also hope that what I found is a volcano." Nian Bing saw something in Li Hua's eyes. At the same time, he also understood that it couldn't be a volcano at all. How could a layman who wasn't a magician have that kind of misunderstanding? How could he? The eye of eternal life was the source of water. In other words, was it possible for there to be water in a volcano? If it was really a volcano, Li Hua couldn't see anything at all. At some point, Feng Nu had come to Nian Bing's side. In a low voice, she said, "Are you sure you want to continue moving forward?" Nian Bing said, "I have no reason to back out now. However, it seems like you're right. Feng Nu, can't you tell us what race it is?" Feng Nu hesitated, but still shook her head. "Maybe it's not as serious as you think. As long as we don't infringe on the interests of that race, there won't be any conflicts. That race has never been interested in money and treasures. I think that the treasure you're looking for may not be related to them. So, you don't have to worry too much." Hearing Feng Nu's words, Nian Bing relaxed a little. "I hope so." Without saying anything more, Nian Bing walked to the side and asked 2 mercenaries to help set up a stove. Then, he asked the wind and cloud magician to take out some food from his spatial magic item and start cooking for everyone. After all, he had to cook for more than 30 people. Nian Bing chose the simplest method. He soaked the clean rice in water and started a fire below. At the same time, he shredded the chicken and put it into the pot. Then, he removed the pits and put in the date. He added some salt and stirred them evenly. Then, he started the cooking process. With so many people and hidden dangers, he didn't have time to show off his cooking skills. First, he had to replenish everyone's strength. Filling their stomachs was the most important. This shredded chicken and date rice was very suitable. It had an excellent effect on replenishing strength. During the cooking process, Nian Bing directly inserted the blade of the righteous Yang saber into the pot. In addition to his fire magic, he quickly prepared a meal for everyone. Although it wasn't sumptuous, it tasted delicious. After the meal, every mercenary's strength had recovered very well. Carlo didn't give them more time to rest and quickly set off. Their goal was still the deepest part of the sky-shaking mountain range. When they set off again, Likiti became the most important person to protect. He was at the center of the group. He only ate a little at noon and meditated on the pole, trying to recover his magic power as soon as possible. In winter, the mountains weren't completely bare. Some cold-resistant plants still grew. The mercenary group's route was mainly through the mountain valleys. This way they could conserve more energy. When they successfully passed through several mountains, the sky was gradually darkening. After a day of hurrying, they had already traveled a long distance. However, the mountain roads limited their speed. They were still 2 days away from their destination. That night, Carlo chose a flat area in the mountain valley to set up camp. After a simple dinner, he invited Nian Bing and the 2 deputy leaders to his tent. After Likiti had consumed a large amount of magic power, the most important magic caster in Carlo's eyes was undoubtedly Nian Bing. The 4 of them sat in a circle. Carlo spread out a shabby map. This was the first time Nian Bing saw the appearance of a treasure map. She saw that the treasure map was made of a kind of leather. It was yellowish-brown in color and the patterns on it were all drawn with a red color. It depicted the sky-shaking mountain range. The reason why she could distinguish this was because the only annotation on the bottom left corner of the treasure map was the location of the sky-shaking city. With this clear indication, she could find the basic location. Chapter 59. Although the treasure map looked very old, the depiction of the sky-shaking mountain range was very clear. Hundreds of mountains of various sizes were drawn in detail, and the red cross that Carlo mentioned was at the foot of a high mountain in the middle. Carlo pointed at the map and said, "We are now at this position. Although we did not encounter any obstacles today, you all can feel that this operation will not be too smooth." Gatlin nodded and said, "It's too quiet, so quiet that it's scary. Even if it's winter, there shouldn't be no animals in this mountain. However, since we entered the mountain, we haven't encountered anything. It's as if something invisible is controlling this mountain range." Carlo nodded and said, "What worries me the most is the backlash that lithium technetium sorcerer encountered today." Huarue said, "Yes. It's not a volcano, but I had to say that at that time." Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat, and her view of Huarue changed greatly. This astonishingly beautiful deputy leader was not as simple as she seemed on the surface. So she also knew that it was not a volcano, then she must have said that to stabilize people's hearts. Carlo's gaze turned to Nian Bing. "Nian Bing, what do you think?" Nian Bing thought for a moment and said, "I only have one idea, and that is to leave this place and give up on this mission." Gatlin snorted and said, "Are you afraid?" Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, "Afraid? If being afraid can save my life, what's the harm in being afraid? I will not allow myself to fall into an irreparable danger because of recklessness. If I have a choice, I think it's better to give up this mission. Because that unknown danger is probably not something we can contend against." Gatlin said angrily, Brat, do you know how much we have paid for this operation? Just the high commission paid to you by the Union alone is more than 10,000 gold coins. In addition to other expenses, it is already equivalent to 3 months of the Union's income. How can we be willing to give up just like that? Nian Bing's gaze did not give in at all as she looked at Gatlin and said, I only know one principle, and that is, where there is life, there is hope. Of course. I also understand what you are thinking now, and you haven't really hit the wall. I'm afraid you won't give up. Since I promised President Carlo to participate in this operation, I will definitely follow you to the end. However, there is one thing I have to declare first. Once I encounter a powerful enemy that I cannot resist, I will immediately retreat without hesitation. At that time, don't blame me. You. Gatlin stood up abruptly. His entire body was filled with an imposing aura. Battle chi was released. Light flashed in his eyes. He seemed to be contemplating whether he should get rid of Nianbing first. Huarue chuckled. Nianbing moved closer to Huarue and said, Little brother, it seems that you have found something. Why are you so sure that we are not up to the task this time? Nianbing snorted coldly and said, I didn't find any enemies. However, don't you feel that after entering the heaven-shaking mountain range, the closer we are to the heart of the mountain range, the hotter the surrounding temperature becomes? Although the change is not obvious, for a cold winter, this time seems to be too warm. Her words woke him up. Gatlin sat down with a solemn expression and looked at Carlo. They really did not notice this problem. At this time, when Nianbing mentioned it, they realized that this was the case. Carlo took a deep breath and said, Nianbing, what you said makes sense. However, before carrying out this mission, we have already received a portion of the commission from the employer. If we were to return it like this, according to the rules, we would have to pay back 3 times the amount. Although the Union can afford to compensate for this, the loss would be too great, especially in terms of reputation. Therefore, we have to try. You can rest assured that if we really encounter danger, we will definitely prioritize protecting you. If you agree, you can let your friends leave first. We will not stop you. How about it? Nianbing smiled indifferently and said, Since the president has already decided, I have nothing to say. Be careful. As for my friends, you don't have to worry about them. Unless they are completely wiped out, they will be fine. An ear-piercing scream came from outside. The expressions of the 4 people in the tent changed at the same time. With a flash of light, Carlo and the 2 vice-captains had already rushed out, and Nianbing had already pinched 2 magic spindles in her hands. What's going on? Carlo's low voice sounded, and the camp lit up with torches. All the mercenaries became nervous, and one after another, they pulled out their long swords and vigilantly observed the pitch-black surroundings. Long Ling and Feng Nu had already drilled out of the tent. Long Ling's gaze searched the crowd. When she saw Nianbing, she clearly sighed in relief and recovered her desolate appearance. Nianbing's eyes darted around as he muttered a few incantations under his breath. Then, he threw an explosive flame into the air. Sparks shot out in all directions and instantly lit up the surroundings. Due to the sudden appearance of the light, a black shadow flashed through the forest like a bolt of lightning and fled into the distance. Hua Pistol roared, and her huge body broke a small tree. Her 2 wheel-like axes were like hands, and her body was as light as a swallow as she chased after that black shadow. Gatling had obviously worked together with Hua Pistol for many years, showing an astonishing tacit understanding. It rushed in the direction where the black shadow had appeared, because that was where the first scream had come from. Nianbing did not care about this. After releasing bursting flames, she immediately walked to Feng Nu's side, and whispered a few words in Feng Nu's ear. Feng Nu's brows slightly wrinkled, but she still slowly nodded. All of this was seen by Long Ling. Her desolate eyes were filled with a mournful look of cutting out the complicated details. After a while, Hua Pistol and Gatling both came back. Hua Pistol's huge axe had a trace of blood, and Gatling carried a person back. It was a mercenary. There was no breath of life on his body, and his neck was strangely bent. Obviously, the broken neck was the cause of his death. The atmosphere of the entire mercenary group became different. Gatling said in a cold and tired voice, "There are no traces of resistance. He should have been attacked by a sneak attack. He was very ruthless and directly broke his neck. Who can tell me how he went to the woods alone?" A mercenary whispered, "He went to the toilet. As soon as we entered the woods, we heard the scream." Carlo's expression was still very calm. He turned to Hua Pistol and said, "What did you find over there?" Hua Pistol said, "It's human. This can be judged from the body shape. He didn't meet me head-on. His speed was extremely amazing. I chased after him with all my strength and used the sweeping shadow skill to barely catch up with him. Maybe he didn't expect my speed to suddenly increase. He was careless and was hit by my axe on the back. But that person seemed to be wearing something like armor. His back was very hard, like iron armor, but it was even harder than iron armor. Although I had hurriedly thrown my axe, I had only used 60% of my strength, but I could only scratch his body. After using Plunder Shadow, my speed was temporarily reduced, so I couldn't catch up. However, I found that the person seemed to have a pair of red eyes. It looked a little strange. Thanks to Nian Bing's fireball. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to catch its figure in the dark. Nian Bing said, "That person must have been frightened by my fireball, which is why he chose to flee immediately. From now on, no matter what you do, at least 3 people should be together. This way, at least we can defend against the other party's attack and give our people a chance to rescue. Be careful." Feng Nu's voice suddenly sounded. Nian Bing immediately crushed a scroll in his hand without any hesitation. A rank 4 ice wall directly appeared around his body. A strong force came, and Nian Bing's body subconsciously rushed forward. The sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god jumped into his hands at the same time. He didn't look back, relying on his mind to lock the position of the other party. The fireball and the ice ball were released at the same time, attacking the other party. With a loud boom, the instantaneous ice and fire origin spell had once easily shattered the body of a high-level warrior. This time, it was able to unleash a considerable amount of power. A cry of surprise rang out from midair. Huarue and Gatling had already charged forward at the same time. 2 axes and a cold blade were aimed at the figure that had launched a sneak attack on Nian Bing. A fiery red light lit up in an instant, and a scorching airflow filled the air. In the loud bang, Hua Pistol and Gatling's rising momentum was stopped, and the attacking shadow bounced up high. A hoarse voice echoed in the air, "This is only a warning to you. Leave here immediately. Otherwise, you will be buried in the sky and become fertilizer here." The voice disappeared with the figure. When Gatling and Hua Pistol landed, they had already lost track of the shadow. Carlos stood beside Nian Bing with a long sword in his hand, and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Nian Bing looked at the pile of ice powder behind him with lingering fear. He really doubted that if it weren't for Feng Nu's sudden warning, those magic scrolls on his body would have been able to save his life. The rank 4 ice wall had the strongest defense among all the rank 4 spells, but it only slightly blocked the other party. From Carlo's actions, it wasn't that spell that had saved him, but him. Shaking his head, he said, "I'm fine. Thank you for saving me." Carlo smiled bitterly. "It seems that what you said makes a lot of sense. Just now, when I fought with that person, it was obvious that his strength was definitely not below mine. Currently, it seems that we have at least 2 pugilist-level enemies." Nian Bing sighed, "But I understand that this can't shake your determination, right?" Carlo nodded firmly and said, "Knowing the difficulties and advancing has always been my principle as a person." Laughter suddenly sounded. Nian Bing turned to look, only to see Zi Qingmeng laughing. "You two should change your ages. The younger one is cautious like an old man, and the older one is stubborn like a young man." Carlo sighed, "Continue guarding." Everyone else go back to sleep. Nian Bing's words are my orders. Any operation must be carried out with at least 3 people. Everything returned to normal. This time, Nian Bing returned to her tent. Recalling the huge impact from before, she couldn't help but feel some lingering fear. Who was the enemy? If what Phoenix Girl said was true, then what kind of race could survive in the mountains from the bottom up? But from the fact that they knew the human language and had the appearance of a human, they should be humans. Where did the other races come from? Nian Bing took a deep breath. The sneak attack from the enemy in the dark made him feel a strong sense of danger. As a member of a mercenary group, he was the easiest to be attacked by the enemy. He had to increase his vigilance and defense. Otherwise, if she died inexplicably in this mountain range, it wouldn't be worth it. The cooperative sneak attack made the entire mercenary group nervous. However, no changes occurred in the latter half of the night. When the sun shone on the earth, bringing light to the sky-shaking mountain range, a new day had begun. That dead mercenary was turned into ashes by Nian Bing's fire magic. His fellow mercenaries brought his ashes back to the Ice Moon Empire to be buried. Looking at the undulating mountain peaks, Carlo raised his hand and firmly shouted, "Advance!" The blow from last night seemed to have completely disappeared. He was still full of confidence. However, Nian Bing observed that Carlo's hand was still on the hilt of the sword at his waist. The atmosphere on the second day was even more tense than the first. The mercenaries were constantly paying attention to their surroundings, afraid that someone would suddenly jump out and break their neck. It was no wonder that they were so nervous. The tragic death of their comrade had cast a shadow over the entire mercenary group. Fortunately, Carlo and the 2 deputy leaders were extremely calm. Their subordinates had been trained for a long time and had seen a lot of big scenes. Other than being more cautious, they did not make any abnormal movement. What was strange was that the enemy who came to warn them yesterday didn't appear again on the second day after the mercenary group entered the mountain range. Nian Bing didn't even feel that they were being watched. The day passed peacefully as they hurried along. Even so, after stopping them from setting up camp, Carlo personally patrolled every tent and specifically told the patrolling mercenaries what to pay attention to. The defense for the whole night was led by the 2 vice leaders for the first and second half of the night. Patting his stomach, the food he made was still the best. Nian Bing lay down in the tent contentedly. The soft cushion from the spatial ring was definitely the most enjoyable at this time. For the past 2 days, he was in charge of all the meals. Every time it was time for the mercenaries to eat, they could completely relax. Because of this, the mercenaries' impression of Nian Bing continued to increase. When they were hurrying along, they deliberately moved closer to him to prevent another sneak attack. After 2 days, Li Hua's magic power had already recovered by 70 to 80%. He was no longer so weak, but he didn't dare to use magic to probe the inside of the sky-shaking mountain range again. "Nian Bing, I'm coming in." Feng Nu's voice came from outside the tent. The tent used by the mercenary group wasn't big and could only accommodate 1 person lying down. Hearing Feng Nu's voice, Nian Bing hurriedly sat up. "Please come in." The tent's curtains were lifted. Feng Nu stepped into the tent and sat down. Her pink hair draped over her shoulders, setting off her beautiful appearance. She looked very moving. Thinking of how he had once hugged this perfect bewitching body, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel hot. "Feng Nu, are you looking for me?" Feng Nu's expression was somewhat worried. "Nian Bing, the situation is very bad." Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Now you should tell me what that race is." Feng Nu sighed and said, "I'm sorry, I can't go against the agreement of the ancestors. Since we've already come here, I'm afraid we can only move forward. Last night, others might not be clear, but I clearly saw the appearance of the person who sneak attacked you. Just as I've guessed, it's indeed a person from that race. Do you know why they didn't appear again today? It's not that they want to let us go, but they already have the intention to kill us. When we really enter the inside of the mountain range, that's the moment they make their move. Nian Bing frowned and said, in that case, now is the calm before the storm. I'm afraid tomorrow's journey won't be easy. Feng Nu nodded and said, that's right. Nian Bing said, it's a pity that I can't persuade President Carlo now. Without a result, they will definitely not give up. Let's take one step at a time. Don't trouble yourself with what I told you last night. Feng Nu nodded and said, I can only do my best. After all, the plan can't keep up with the changes. Nian Bing suddenly chuckled and said, your body smells so good. You haven't bathed for at least 2 days, how can you still smell so good? Feng Nu was stunned for a moment. Then, her charming face turned red and said, what time is it? You're still in the mood to joke. Nian Bing smiled and said, the more nervous we are, the more relaxed we have to be. That way we can face it better, isn't it? You haven't answered my question yet. Feng Nu snorted and said, my race and I have the ability to keep ourselves clean. Even if we don't bathe for a few months. Our clothes will be dirty, but our bodies will never be. Alright, I didn't come to you to ask you to give up. I just want to remind you to be careful. If you can't do anything, then run quickly. After saying that, she stood up, rolled her eyes at Nian Bing and left the tent. She was gone, but her fragrance still lingered. Nian Bing took a deep breath and realized. He was becoming more and more infatuated with Feng Nu. He took out the little flute that Feng Nu had given him but never used. He couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Although the two of them had always maintained a friendship, he could feel Feng Nu's concern for him. At this moment, the tent's curtains suddenly lifted and a graceful figure walked in. Nian Bing thought that it was Fu Gui who had returned after leaving the Phoenix Maiden, but when he looked up, he realized that it was Zi Qingmeng with an icy expression. Miss Zi? Why are you looking for me? Nian Bing asked in surprise. Zi Qingmeng glanced at the body in Nian Bing's hand. She sat down in front of Nian Bing without hesitation and said, I came to find you for 2 things. The first is for my brother. The second is for arriving at the treasure location tomorrow. Nian Bing looked at her with interest and said, what are the details? Zi Qingmeng said, I can see that your relationship with Feng Nu is not ordinary. This is your private matter and I have no right to interfere. However, you should have noticed that since Feng Nu appeared, my brother couldn't help but fall in love with her. If Feng Nu is your girlfriend, I hope you can tell my brother officially so that he won't be lost in his own reverie. I don't want him to be hurt by a one-sided love. Nian Bing smiled and said, I'm afraid I can't help you with this. It's not that I don't want to help, but because I don't have the authority to help you. Feng Nu and I are just friends. How can you speak as a boyfriend? Zi Qingmeng snorted and said angrily, you are just friends? Who are you kidding? Do you think I didn't see how tightly you hugged her that day? If you are just friends, how can she let you take advantage of her? If you are just friends, how can she let you sleep on her shoulder? Nian Bing's heart trembled. Zi Qingmeng was telling the truth. Thinking of the scene that day, frankly speaking, he was also a little surprised. He didn't expect Feng Nu to be so tolerant of him. Could it be that Feng Nu really had that kind of feeling for him? Miss Zi, let's put this matter aside for the time being. We will arrive at the treasure location tomorrow, and unknown dangers await us. How about this, if everyone comes back safely, I will discuss with Feng Nu. As long as she agrees to continue acting with me, I will cooperate. What do you think? Zi Qingmeng pondered for a moment and asked in a strange voice. You and Feng Nu are really not boyfriend and girlfriend? What about that female magician? Isn't Dao? Nian Bing said impatiently, you seem to want every Qi to be my girlfriend? Then why don't you be my girlfriend too? To tell you the truth, I am currently single and will be single for a long time in the future. I only have friends and no girlfriends. I hope you won't be entangled with this issue in the future. Now you can talk about the second matter. Zi Qingming's face inexplicably reddened as she bowed her head and said, I'm sorry, I was too nosy. Nian Bing was stunned. This was the first time he saw Zi Qingming show such an expression. Since the girl had apologized, his tone immediately softened. "It's okay, I was just agitated because everyone misunderstood my personal situation." Zi Qingming looked up at Nian Bing and said, "What happened last night gave me a bad premonition. Feng Nu is so strong and loyal, but my brother and I are not so sure. You also know that I am only a sword master. If I encounter such a sneak attack, I'm afraid. So, if we encounter an enemy, can you use magic to protect me and my brother?" Looking at Nian Bing's surprised eyes, she hurriedly explained, "We are not afraid of death. My brother did not know that I came to find you. But, my brother and I are both the heirs of Lanmeng Academy. Father only has us as his children. So no matter when, we have to put our own lives first. That's why I came to find you. Will you help us?" Nian Bing said seriously, "Miss Z, although we haven't known each other for a long time, we are at least friends. You don't have to worry about this. I don't mind protecting my friends under the premise of my own case." Zi Qingming smiled. Nian Bing noticed. When she smiled, she looked much better than when she was cold. "Thank you, Nian Bing." Zi Qingming stood up and was about to walk out of the tent. "Miss Z, don't you think my answer is too bad?" Nian Bing asked curiously. Zi Qingming shook her head with her back facing him and said, "No, of course not. At least this proves that you are not a hypocrite. If you are in danger, how can you protect us? Thank you for your promise." She lifted the tent and left. So she is so rational. It seems that no one can be underestimated. I hope I can take them out of here alive. Nian Bing muttered to himself. "Nian Bing, can I come in?" A very soft voice came from outside. Nian Bing groaned in his heart. How come one left and another came, and they all looked so sad? Who knew what the mercenaries would think if they saw this? However, the last one to come was the one he couldn't refuse. To be more precise, he was even looking forward to her arrival. "Ling come in quickly. It's cold outside." The tent curtain was lifted and Long Ling, who had not spoken to Nian Bing except when they met, came in. She was not wearing her thick fur coat. The ice magic robe on her body looked very thin, and coupled with her pale face. Looking at her, one would feel pity for her. Long Ling sat down opposite Nian Bing, a faint smile on her face. "Nian Bing, we haven't seen each other for several months. How are you?" Her expression looked very relaxed, but the sadness in her eyes did not change. "Linger, I'm very good. How about you?" After asking this question, Nian Bing almost slapped himself. How could he say the word good with Long Ling's appearance? Unexpectedly, Long Ling nodded affirmatively and said, "I'm very good. Did you know? Ever since you left, I used the method you taught me to train my spiritual power and very quickly entered the realm of Great Mage. If I had more time to train, I think I would have become a great mage even earlier than you." Nian Bing lowered her head and said, "Then I'll congratulate you first." Long Ling smiled indifferently and said, "There's nothing to congratulate. In terms of talent, you are much better than me." "Oh right, I haven't congratulated you. When are you and that Feng Nu girl going to get married? If I'm still here, remember to send me a wedding invitation." Nian Bing thought in her heart and said, "You're still here? What do you mean? Feng Nu and I are just ordinary friends, just like you and me. Don't misunderstand. Ordinary friends." The sadness on her face became more intense. "Then I misunderstood. However, Feng Nu girl is really very beautiful. Why don't you chase such a beautiful girl?" Nian Bing sighed softly and said, "Remember I once told you that I don't have the right to love. That's not an excuse, but my true feelings." Long Ling smiled and said, "This has nothing to do with me." "Oh right, my father told me to tell you, don't forget to represent the union in the competition. In half a year, the time will be up." Nian Bing nodded and said, "Since I promised, I will definitely go." Long Ling's eyes became a bit more radiant. "Then when you carry out this mission, you must survive. No matter what, you must always put your life first. This is for you, quickly wear it. While speaking, she took out a piece of clothing from her magic robe. A faint golden red light flickered. It seemed to be a vest. It looked very light and thin, like a veil. Nian Bing subconsciously asked, "What is this?" The dragon spirit smiled and said, "You also know that our bodies are the most fragile. Father asked me to bring this vest to you. When you wear it, even if your opponent is a martial arts expert in the martial sage realm, it can block most of the attack for you. It is the best defensive animal for a magician. I don't know how the material is made. My father tried it before. Even if it was a 10th level magic, it couldn't be destroyed. It has a special effect on the defense of Do Qi. I came to find you to complete the mission my father gave me. Here I have to go. Tomorrow you may encounter danger. Be careful." With that, the dragon spirit stuffed the golden red singlet into Nian Bing's hands and smiled at him before turning to leave. The golden red vest was like nothing in her hands. She gently unfolded it, and a faint fragrance assailed her nose. Nian Bing didn't think too much about it. She focused all her attention on the vest. She casually threw a flame spell. Under the light of the flame, the vest shone with a faint luster. Nian Bing had never seen this kind of material before. With a gentle pull, the elastic vest was immediately stretched a little. When she let go, it returned to normal. No wonder Long Ling said that the vest was given to her by the president. It was naturally a good thing to have one more life-saving item. Nian Bing hurriedly took off her clothes and put on the vest. Sure enough, the vest's elasticity was excellent. When worn against the skin, it was as comfortable as skin. The breath ability made the body feel no discomfort. Nian Bing subconsciously used a flame spell to test her body. There wasn't any burning sensation. There wasn't even a mark on the vest. It was indeed a very good treasure. The fragrance that had appeared before became stronger after the vest was worn. Caressing the soft vest, Nian Bing's body suddenly shook. Her brain felt like it had been electrocuted, and her whole body became sluggish. Pulling up a corner of the vest, she carefully sniffed it. His body trembled slightly. What master gave me this vest? What fear of me being in danger? Long Ji couldn't have guessed that Ling would encounter me. What's more, people were different. Ling was also a magician. With such a good protective magic weapon as a father, he naturally should give it to his daughter. This fragrance was so familiar. It was clearly Ling body fragrance. Obviously, this vest was originally worn by her. Long Ji had given her a protective treasure, but she had given it to him instead. She had given it to him right before he was about to face a crisis tomorrow. If he still couldn't understand this silent affection, then he would be the biggest fool in the world. Ling you're really stupid. Why are you so good to me? I'm not worth it. Ling I'm sorry. I've let you down too much. Chapter 60. 2 drops of sparkling and translucent tears fell from the corners of Nian Bing's eyes. He knew that no matter what, he could not maintain his current attitude towards Long Ling gave this vest to him. In addition to what she said before, it was clear that she gave up her own safety to care about him. Moreover, she did not tell him the truth and made up a story to deceive him. Nian Bing's heart trembled. This was the first time he trembled for a woman. His hands tightly gripped the edges of the vest, trying hard to control his emotions. Long Ling's gentleness constantly appeared in his mind, constantly churning in his heart. That gentle and beautiful face, that gentle voice, all of them deeply shook his heart. Taking a deep breath, Nian Bing forced himself to calm down. Ling how can I let you give up your own safety for me? If that's the case, I don't deserve to be called a man. His mind turned. Looking at the vest that did not feel the slightest bit on his body, he already had a plan. Picking up the phoenix flute on the side, he softly blew it. On the morning of the second day, Li Hua finally recovered all of his Fa. The reorganized mercenary group once again set out. The mercenaries did not relax in the slightest because of yesterday's calm. They were constantly on guard against anything that could happen in their surroundings. Nian Bing sat on the bone pole, looking at Long Ling from time to time. Long Ling's expression was still the same as yesterday, calm with a touch of sadness. Occasionally, she would raise her head to look into the distance. Her eyes were so empty. Nian Bing's heart ached. He knew that he would never be able to forget Long Ling's eyes right now. Carlo held the sword hilt in his hand, looking at the map as he walked. He loudly said, "Everyone, keep your spirits up. We are already getting closer and closer to our goal. After crossing 2 more towering mountains and precipitous ridges, we will be able to find what we are looking for. In order to go back and reunite with your family, in order to live a better life, all of you have to keep your spirits up. We all have to go back alive." His voice had just faded when not far away, a low roar made the entire mercenary group tense up. The ground shook, and a huge figure rushed out from behind a hill not far away. In the roar, its movie ticket was precisely the Frozen Moon mercenary group's location. Nian Bing shockingly discovered that the monster that rushed out was about 8 meters tall. Its upper body was upright, and its whole body was covered in an iron-gray cuticle. It looked extremely solid, and its body was more like a big lizard. But it was clearly much bigger than a lizard. On its back there were 2 rows of black fin-like things. Its 2 powerful and thick hind legs supported its huge body, and its long tail was behind it. When it roared, it revealed its huge fangs, and saliva flowed from its mouth. From head to tail, it was almost 2 zhang long. Its forelimbs were obviously smaller than its hind limbs, but its claws were bigger, and it charged forward at an extremely fast speed. Although he was secretly complaining in his heart. However, Nian Bing did not forget to remind his teammates. "Everyone be careful, this is an iron-back earth dragon, its defense is very strong." He shouted and immediately began to condense his magic power. He had seen the strength of an iron-back earth dragon before, so he didn't dare to relax. Ling Nianbing was somewhat gratified that this was only an iron-back earth dragon. Its body was clearly a lot smaller than the one she saw last time, and its charging power was also a bit weaker. She waved her hands, and a fireball and an ice ball came out together, taking the lead to attack the iron-back earth dragon. This iron-back earth dragon clearly didn't have any intelligence. Its charging speed didn't decrease in the slightest, allowing the fireball and ice ball to converge in front of it, bursting out with the strongest attack power. With a loud bang, the iron-back earth dragon's charging speed slowed down. Just as Nianbing had judged, the rank 1 fusion magic of ice and fire had no effect on this big guy. Even the unique aura of ice and fire couldn't affect it in the case of insufficient attack power. Just as he was about to attack again, a huge figure rushed out from the mercenary group. "Damn, a little reptile dares to block our way, I'll chop you to death." With an angry roar, Hua Pistol's round body soared into the sky, crashing into the iron-back earth dragon from below. Nianbing was afraid of accidentally injuring her, so she hurriedly withdrew her magic. A strange scene appeared. When the ironback earth dragon used its 2 claws to slap Hua Pistol's pair of wheel-shaped axes, with a loud bang, its forward momentum was completely disintegrated. A crack appeared on each of its 2 front claws, but Hua Pistol didn't have the slightest intention of letting it go. A strong white dough chi seeped out of her body, rendering her pair of huge axes to chop towards the ironback earth dragon without any fancy moves. Earth dragon meeting a female Tyrannosaurus, it can only count itself as its bad luck. A mercenary gloated. No mercenary went up to help, they seemed to have long been accustomed to Hua Pistol's fighting style. Her dough chi reaching the level of a pugilist in addition to her innate strength brought a fatal blow to the iron-back earth dragon. A series of loud sounds accompanied by ear-piercing sound of silk being torn was heard. Nianbing was alarmed to find that the iron-back earth dragon's huge head was separated from its body. A large amount of blood continuously flowed out, and its huge body fell to the ground with a bang. Heavens! Is this still the same earth dragon that almost killed me? Although it's not at the same level, but it shouldn't be so easy to chop it to death. Nian Bing couldn't help but look at the stamen with a different gaze. Hua Pistol had been bored out of her mind for the past 2 days. The enemy was like a mouse playing with a cat in the dark. Now that there was a sudden attack from the front, how could she bear it? Under the effect of her powerful strength and Do Qi, she actually split the earth dragon alive. Chopping the earth dragon to death was still not enough to vent her anger. The battle axe chopped the earth dragon's huge body one after another, bringing out a spray of blood. Long Ling had already lowered her head, somewhat unable to bear to watch. Feng Nu and Zi Qingmeng didn't feel anything, but they were also surprised by Hua Pistol's strength. Rerue, that's enough. Save some strength, we still don't know what's ahead. Carlos stopped Hua Pistol's action of torturing the corpse. Hua Pistol raised her 2 axes, as if asking the heroes of the world if not me. First she roared like a monster, then she said in a rough voice, "Damn, let's see who dares to offend our frozen moon mercenary group. Not to mention one earth dragon, even if there are 10 or 100 of them, I will still chop them to death." Gatling's angry voice sounded. "Shut your crow's mouth." Hua Pistol turned around and angrily said, "What, you don't accept? If you have the ability, then let's fight." Gatling snorted and said, "Idiot, look behind the hillside." Everyone discovered that there were more than 20 earth dragons, step by step coming out from behind the hillside, and the low roar gradually became clear. The earth dragon at the front suddenly stomped the ground, and all the other earth dragons rushed over like sweat. An iron north earth dragon could already bring about a huge momentum. More than 20 earth dragons charged at the same time. Even the fierce female Tyrannosaurus Hua Pistol couldn't help but change her face. With such an impact, no one present could withstand it. Carlo hurriedly said, "Quick, take the magicians and retreat. Try to fight, don't confront them head-on." The 8 mercenaries who were carrying the poles quickly retreated. At this moment, a voice rang out from behind them. Nian Bing suddenly shouted, "Don't shake, warriors, prepare for close combat. I will deal with their charge." As he spoke, he waved his right hand and 2 magic scrolls flew out under his control. Red light and blue light appeared at the same time. The left hand of the god of fire, accompanied by the enhanced monochrome ice ball, flew out toward the earth dragons. At that time, Nian Bing once cooperated with public and private interests to create a rank 5 fusion of ice and fire magic, which made Archmage Long Ji look at him with admiration. At this time, facing a large number of earth dragons, he once again used the ability he was good at, but time was urgent, so he could only painfully throw out the magic scrolls. He firmly believed that there were still 3 magicians around him. As long as the first wave of the earth dragon's attack was blocked, support would come. Now, the ice and fire fusion magic was different from before. Through a deep understanding of the 2 kinds of magic, Nian Bing really exerted the power of ice and fire, and 2 rank 5 magic burst out at the same time. It produced an impact equivalent to a rank 7 magic. Even if it was a gold-backed earth dragon, it would not be comfortable here, let alone these iron-backed earth dragons. In the huge explosion, the 4 earth dragons rushing at the front were suddenly blown up, colliding with the earth dragons behind them. A large hole with a diameter of more than 2 zhang appeared on the ground. The earth dragon's forward momentum was immediately disintegrated. The earth dragons that were blown to the ground had their scales and flesh splattered. Although it was not fatal, they also suffered heavy injuries. Their strongest defensive ability was on their back, and their chest was much worse. Carlo's reaction was extremely fast. He tacitly took the warriors to spread out and rush toward those earth dragons. At this time, the first magic of the earth great magician Feng Yun was also completed in a timely manner. The earth shook violently. With the large hole created by Nian Bing as the center, several huge cracks appeared in the direction of the earth dragons. It was the rank 5 earth-splitting spell. Although the earth-splitting spell could not directly hurt the earth dragons, it was enough to delay their movements. Huarue took the lead and rushed toward the earth dragons that were in a mess. She was now completely not like a woman. Of course, in other people's eyes, she had never been regarded as a woman. An earth dragon's big head that was blown up was thrown up, bringing with it a burst of hot blood. Gatlin also showed the strength of a martial artist. His body flashed and rushed into the air. He was not as violent as Huarue, but his attack was much more vicious. The short knife in his hand was like a poisonous snake's fang. It directly pierced into the eyes of an earth dragon, which was the weakest part of its body. After a touch, he immediately turned to the next earth dragon. The seriously injured earth dragon roared, and kept attacking all the living creatures around it. Of course, the most important ones were its companions. Blood kept flowing out of its eyes. No matter how strong its body was, it could not survive with its brain damaged. Death was just a matter of time. Various colors of Do Chi shone among the mercenaries. Although they were not as strong as the two deputy finance ministers, the great swordsman's Do Chi was not a joke. The mercenaries cooperated well. Some of them used guerrilla tactics to attract the attention of the earth dragons, while others followed Gatlin's example and specifically looked for the weak eyes of the earth dragons. With the protection of Do Chi, even if they were really hit by the earth dragons, as long as it was not a frontal collision, it would not be fatal. For a time, the whole situation was developing in the Frozen Moon mercenary group's favor. Carlo did not make a move. Instead, he observed the earth dragons in front of him. He was waiting. Once his subordinates were in danger, he would ask for help. This was cooperation. A high-level mercenary group paid the most attention to cooperation. Perhaps the heavens wanted to play a joke on the Frozen Moon mercenary group. Just as they were about to gain the upper hand, Feng Nu's surprised voice suddenly sounded. "Everyone be careful, there are more behind us." The 8 mercenaries who were originally in charge of lifting the poles immediately reacted. When they turned around to look behind them, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because there were also iron northern earth dragons behind them. Moreover, there were an astonishing number of 30 of them. Zi Qingming exclaimed, "Heavens! Did our Feng enter a lizard's nest?" As she spoke, the short knife that she used to fight with Feng Nu jumped into her hand. Zi Qingming's ice blade was a broad-bladed heavy sword. In a flash, she blocked her sister behind her. At this time, Zi Qingming's eyes were fixed on Nian Bing. Nian Bing helplessly sighed. She secretly scolded herself for being careless. She should have condensed 2 magic spells earlier, but the earth dragons in front of her had already charged. In desperation, she could only take out 2 more scrolls. At this time, Li Hua, who had not used any magic until now, made his move. If it was said that before, the mercenaries had underestimated Li Hua because he had almost been seriously injured by the backlash of the magic spell, then after this magical guest, no one dared to underestimate the highest-level magician present. Nian Bing might have been careless, but Li Hua was not. This was the effect of experience. As he chanted, he raised his magic staff high above his head, and circles of blue light gathered in front of him. The blue light quickly rotated, and in the blink of an eye, a blue vortex gradually formed in front of him. It was a real vortex, and the group of earth dragons charged into the vortex. Although their charging force was strong, it was definitely not as strong as the vortex. Instantly, more than 30 earth dragons were completely sucked into the vortex, and their bodies kept colliding in the vortex. What would happen if their bodies collided with each other in the vortex that had the same tough body as theirs? The blue vortex had a few more traces of red. Ripple of water vortex? Nian Bing was very surprised. This was because this was a very rare water magic spell. It belonged to the 7th step of the magic category, but the attack power of this spell was not strong. If there was only one enemy, the attack power would be even less. Once the magic power ran out, the vortex would disappear. Other than giving the enemy a slight feeling of dizziness, There was nothing special about this spell. This was especially true for warriors with martial arts skills. As long as the opponent's combat power was strong enough, they could easily rush out of the vortex. However, this spell was very effective against the powerful earth dragons. Not only did it block their momentum, but it could also cause them to suffer a certain amount of damage when they collided with each other. The two-colored ice ball, quickly. Li Hua called out somewhat anxiously. Long Ling, who was originally a little sluggish, hurriedly chanted, "Great ice elemental! Condense, become an ancient glacier, become a solid ice of moonlight, the fusion of ice and ice, appear, the two-colored ice ball." A gigantic two-colored ice sphere appeared. Perhaps the dragon spirit had been influenced by the psychic ice magic's control, but it had intentionally compressed the ice sphere to make it more solid. Although the spikes were shorter, they looked much sturdier. Nian Bing's eyes lit up. She immediately understood Li Hua's idea. In a real vortex, if there was only one thing, then it would continue to spin and walk into the vortex to be swallowed. However, if this thing touched a motionless solid object in the vortex, then, under the huge impact of the vortex, it would be easily broken. At this time, the two-colored ice ball would be this solid object. As for whether it would have a good effect, it would depend on Long Ling's magic power. The ice ball flew into the vortex, and 30 earth dragons immediately collided with it one after another. Under the huge force of the vortex, the ice ball was quickly dyed red. Although Long Ling could not control the ice ball to stay still, she could make it rotate with the waves to slow down a little. This was enough. "Mercenaries, the rest will be left to you." When the ice ball crushed the 12th Ironback Earth Dragon, Li Hua stopped the spell. After all, continuously using a 6-step spell with a large area was not easy, even for a sorcerer like him. The dizzy earth dragons finally had their feet on the ground. Zi Qingjian shouted, "Nian Bing, help me protect my sister." He was the first to rush out. His fighting style was very similar to that of a flower's stamen. His strength was not inferior to that of a flower's stamen. The hard scales of the earth dragons did not have much of a defensive effect under the heavy sword. An earth dragon's head had already rolled to the ground. The remaining 20 or so earth dragons had not yet recovered from their dizziness. Nian Bing's 8 mercenaries had already rushed out with Zi Qingjian. "Sister Feng Nu, aren't you going?" Zi Qingmeng, who was worried about her brother, asked Feng Nu, who was beside her. Feng Nu smiled faintly. She said, "I don't like blood, and there's no need for me to take action now." Zi Qingjian's strength had already reached the level of a pugilist. Perhaps he did not have Gatling's Do Qi, but his innate strength and indomitable momentum gave him a destructive power that could not be underestimated. Under his leadership, 4 earth dragons perished in the hands of the mercenaries. At this moment, the earth dragons finally woke up from their dizziness. Their huge claws and sharp teeth brought a lot of trouble to the mercenaries. Wanting to slaughter the earth dragons. It was not an easy task. Except for Zi Qingjian. The other mercenaries could only choose the earth dragon's eyes. Only then could they give them a fatal blow. However, the earth dragons seemed to have learned to be smarter. Even the earth dragons on Carlo's side were not so easy to injure. Of the remaining 16 earth dragons, 10 were besieging Zi Qingjian's group, while the remaining 5 were rushing towards Nian Bing's group. Feng Nu glanced at Zi Qingmeng and smiled bitterly. He smiled bitterly and said, "Looks like I really have to take action. Nian Bing, don't use magic anymore. Save some magic." As soon as her voice fell, her expression suddenly changed. A fiery red aura spread throughout her body. Her expression became abnormally calm as she directly rushed towards the 5 earth dragons. Long Ling exclaimed, "Nian Bing, quickly use the scroll to help her. She will die if she confronts the earth dragons." She was gentle and kind. If it was not for the fact that she did not have time to chant magic, she would have already taken action. She knew that only Nian Bing could help Feng Nu now. Nian Bing smiled and shook her head, No need, wait and see. The red figure was like smoke, strangely passing through the middle of the 5 earth dragons. Even with Nian Bing's eyesight, she could only see a few flashes of silver light. The red figure did not stop, but rushed into the midst of the earth dragons that were fighting with Zi Qingmeng. At this time, Zi Qingmeng had already dealt with another one. The 5 earth dragons were still madly rushing towards Nian Bing's group. Carlo, who had been observing the situation, wanted to come over and help, but he saw a strange scene. The 5 earth dragons were running, but their body parts were falling one by one. Blood and minced meat spread over 10 meters. When they were 30 meters away from Nian Bing's group, they had already turned into pieces of meat. Long Ling's face became even paler. Her hand holding the magic staff trembled slightly. Zi Qingmeng muttered, Didn't she say that she doesn't like blood? The corner of Nian Bing's mouth twitched. Yes, she doesn't like blood. Didn't you see? She's not stained with blood. Zi Qingmeng murmured, Father once said that a true swordsman is equivalent to 20 martial artists. She just entered the swordsman realm. I think she's equivalent to 10 martial artists. What a terrifying strength. Although Feng Nu's strength was formidable, she was able to create such an effect thanks to her parting heaven sword. Relying on the nearly divine artifact level blade infused with 9-leaf battle chi, cutting through the ironback earth dragon's scales was not much different from cutting through a piece of paper. At this time, the battle on Zi Qingmeng's side had already ended. With Feng Nu's participation, the earth dragons could only face death. Carlo's voice suddenly sounded, Nian Bing, be careful. When Nian Bing turned around, he saw a huge earth dragon rushing up from the side, rushing towards him. At this time, Zi Qingmeng was already scared stiff. Feng Yun was also stunned. Only Long Ling and Li Hua reacted. Li Hua took out a magic scroll from his chest. Long Ling's movements were very direct. She actually rushed directly towards Nian Bing, using her back to face the earth dragon that was already 10 meters away. Nian Bing was not frightened by the earth dragon, but he was frightened by Long Ling. With a flick of his wrist, he shook his wrist and a red light flew out. With a loud bang, the earth dragon fell 3 meters away from Long Ling. Its huge head had already been split in half, and the thick righteous yang blade was chopping at its neck. As soon as the earth dragon appeared behind him, Nian Bing had already begun to prepare. He absolutely would not make the same mistake twice. Perhaps low-level magic could not hurt the earth dragon. However, under the powerful explosive power of the bursting flames technique, the righteous yang blade, a divine artifact, could easily cut into the earth dragon's hard head. This was something he had learned from Feng Nu's parting heaven sword. He did not have Douqi, but he could use magic as a boost. The first experiment had achieved excellent result. At this moment, Nian Bing tightly held Long Ling in his arms. Linger, why are you so silly? Tightly holding her soft body, Nian Bing could no longer control his feelings. Long Ling's sacrifice had deeply touched his heart, he knew. In this life, he would never abandon the girl in his arms. After all, the human heart was made of flesh. Such a gentle and kind girl was willing to sacrifice her life for him. How could he not be moved? Long Ling's pretty face blushed. Since Nian Bing left, she felt at ease for the first time. Lying in his warm embrace, her tears soaked Nian Bing's chest. Zi Qingmeng's coughs woke the two of them up. Long Ling hurriedly pushed Nian Bing away, her pretty face blushing as she stood to the side and wiped the remaining tears from the corners of her eyes. Zi Qingmeng handed the righteous yang blade to Nian Bing and teased, This kitchen knife of yours is really versatile. After cutting down the earth dragon, you won't continue to cook for us, right? Nian Bing bitterly smiled. This is only a temporary measure. Rest assured, I will definitely wash the righteous yang blade clean. You can't be like this in the future. I will protect myself and you. Do you know how much my heart ached just now? Long Ling's expression had already returned to normal. Nian Bing, we are only ordinary friends. Don't say such things to me in the future. Finished speaking, she turned and walked towards her own pole. Nian Bing was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly chased after Long Ling. He grabbed her hand and said, Ling I was wrong before. If you are willing, I want to pursue you. Is that okay? When feelings arrived, it was impossible to avoid. Nian Bing was very rational, so he chose to face it. However, Long Ling's answer surprised him. Of course not. Nian Bing, I forgot to tell you something. I am already engaged to Sergio. Long Ling broke free from Nian Bing's hand and walked to the pole to sit down. What? You are already engaged to Sergio? No, that's impossible. You must be lying to me, right? Nian Bing's expression was a bit sluggish. Long Ling glanced at him. Do I need to lie to you? Since you don't want me, I will naturally choose someone who loves me. A bitter feeling stimulated Nian Bing's heart. He lowered his head and sighed heavily. Sorry? Then I congratulate you. As soon as his voice fell, Nian Bing's eyes suddenly emitted a cold light. He suddenly raised his head and walked step by step towards the earth dragon that Huarui and the others were fighting. At this time, there were still 8 earth dragons fighting with the mercenaries. Burn, endless flames. Nian Bing raised his righteous yang blade. The sigh of the fire god allowed him to quickly absorb the surrounding fire elements. Endless flames. Lend me your unquenchable passion. Rise, cover me in flames. Flame Cover was a 6th-level auxiliary spell of the fire element. After using this spell, any fire element spell below the 6th level could be enhanced to a 7th-level attack. It was a spell that fire element magicians used when they launched spells that were beyond their ability. Strong flames surrounded Nian Bing's body and rose. The flames were not red, but deep blue. O great god of fire! Please allow me to borrow your left hand to let the flames of fire come to the world and extinguish all the evil forces. Let the flames shine on the earth and destroy all the obstacles in front of me. Fire god's left hand. The flames condensed above the roar of the fire god. The blue fire god's left hand appeared above Nian Bing. Tear everything apart for me. The roar of the fire god suddenly pointed forward. The bisexual Nian Bing now had a ball of fire burning in his heart. He just wanted to kill, keep killing. With the roar of the fire god and the enhancement of flame cover, the fire god's left hand directly reached the 7th level. The big blue hand suddenly reached out and grabbed the head of an earth dragon. Under the extreme heat, the earth dragon let out an ear-piercing roar. With a bang, its head was crushed by the fire god's left hand. The massacre wasn't over yet. Nian Bing controlled the fire god's left hand to attack another earth dragon like a madwoman. The earth dragon's huge body was thrown up. The blue flames covered its whole body, emitting a burnt smell. These ordinary earth dragons were only 20 or 30 years old. Compared to the golden-back earth dragon king that Nian Bing encountered last time, they were too far apart. The earth dragons burned in the flames and rolled on the ground. However, the flames that seemed to come from hell did not extinguish. Kill, kill, kill. The 7th-level fire god's left hand displayed a powerful attack. The huge flaming hand sent the remaining earth dragons flying, turning them into a ball of raging flames. While supporting this spell, the master's magic power was being consumed, but Nian Bing did not care at all. Everyone was dumbfounded. They discovered that Nian Bing's eyes had unknowingly turned red. When the last earth dragon was sent flying, the fire god's left hand also disappeared at the same time. It was not that Nian Bing wanted it to disappear, but because his magic power was no longer enough to support this 7th-level spell. The feeling of weakness kept invading Nian Bing's brain, but he could only feel heartache. Heartache for himself, but also for Long Ling. Nian Bing, are you okay? Feng Nu's concerned voice sounded in Nian Bing's ears. It was the first time she saw Nian Bing so crazy. He gave up the most energy-saving spell of the same origin of ice and fire, but chose the most direct flame attack. This approach was completely inconsistent with him. Panting heavily, Nian Bing shook his head. I'm fine. I just wanted to vent a bit. At this time, the mercenaries gathered around. Carlo's gaze towards these people, and Feng knew completely changed. There were a total of 60 earth dragons, and more than half of them were eliminated by Nian Bing's group. This already proved their strength. If it was a lone mercenary, perhaps they could also win, but they would inevitably pay a heavy price. Carlo could not help but feel somewhat fortunate that he made the right choice to invite Nian Bing and his friends into this operation. President Carlo, everyone is tired. Let's rest here for a bit before continuing. Nian Bing said indifferently, then turned around and walked to the side. Carlo was just about to say something, but was stopped by Feng Nu. Let him be in silence. Carlo respectfully said, I really did not expect Miss to be a swordsman. I hope you can forgive Carlo's previous rudeness. Swordsman's influence in the world of martial arts was unparalleled. With such a swordsman in his mercenary group, Carlo's originally shaken confidence due to the appearance of the Earth Dragon Master had been completely restored. Chapter 61. Feng Nu smiled politely and said, You don't have to be so polite. In fact, I haven't really reached the level of swordsman. The future is boundless, so we have to be more careful. Let everyone recover as much as possible. Carlo nodded. Gatling, how are the casualties on our side? Gatling flashed and came to Carlo's side, saying, Leader, we have 7 light injuries, no serious injuries, no deaths. All of us are still fighting. I really didn't expect that we could so easily wipe out 60 Iron North Earth Dragons. We have to thank the magicians and Miss Feng Nu, Carlo said. Everyone rest here and try to recover Do Chi. Brothers who are not injured, stay alert in case there are more magic beast attacks. It's a pity these Earth Dragons. If we can tame them, we can be the first mercenary group to have Earth Dragon Night. Hua Yi's voice sounded like a broken gong. What's a pity? It's already good that we didn't become Earth Dragons dinner. If you want to catch Earth Dragons, you have to be alone, and it has to be a small Earth Dragon to tame. It's not that easy. Carlo smiled and said, Yes. I'm already very glad that there are no casualties. Ruerue, you also rest for a while. You used a lot of strength just now. Nian Bing went to the corner of the hillside and sat down. The crazy attack just now consumed nearly half of his magic power. Without hesitation, he directly went to meditate. At the same time, he divided his mind and thought about Long Ling's words. This rest lasted for a full 2 hours. The injured mercenaries bandaged their wounds, recovered some strength, drank some water, and rested for a while. The appearance of the Earth Dragons not only didn't dispel their morale, but also greatly increased the morale of the entire mercenary group. After all, the Iron North Earth Dragon was also well known in the Yangon continent. It had always been the best mount for its strong defense, fierce attack, and other characteristics. Unfortunately, so far, no country had heard of an Earth Dragon Knight regiment. This time, they annihilated 60 Earth Dragons in one fell swoop. In addition, Feng Nu, Nian Bing, and the others showed great strength, making the mercenaries more confident and cohesive. When Nian Bing returned to the group of mercenaries, a smile had already appeared on his face. As a rational person, he would not let his worries follow him for too long. It was not difficult for him to determine the pros and cons of a matter. He walked to Long Ling's side and whispered, Linglong. There might be unknown dangers ahead. You must be careful. Don't get hurt because of a moment of kindness. Promise me, okay? Long Ling had previously told Nian Bing that she was already engaged to Shurjiu. Nian Bing did not feel good about it either. She didn't know why, but when Nian Bing vented her anger on the Earth Dragon, she also felt a little happy in her heart. At this time, seeing Nian Bing recover so quickly, a sense of loss filled his heart again. He nodded lightly, indicating that he understood. As for our matter, let's talk about it after this operation, okay? Don't be too hard on yourself. Cheer up. Nian Bing returned to his pole after saying that and started discussing the route ahead with Carlo. Looking at Nian Bing's back, Long Ling did not know why her heart trembled. Reason told her that she should not get close to Nianbing, but Nianbing's last words made her inexplicably trust him. What did he mean? President Carlo, what do you think of the Earth Dragon's attack? Nianbing asked calmly. Carlo frowned and said, It is very likely that the enemy is manipulating the Earth Dragon. The Earth Dragon is a solitary magical beast. It is too strange for so many of them to gather at once. And they will also attack us in 2 groups, which is even more strange. So, I think this should be the plan of the enemy who attacked us that day. Nianbing nodded and said, I think so too. So, we must be more careful in the next operation. The enemy is definitely more powerful than we thought. If we really can't deal with them, I hope you can make a prompt decision and give the order to retreat. Life is the most precious. Giving up life for money and revival is definitely an unwise choice. Carlo's complexion changed. After a long while, he nodded with difficulty. Maybe you are right. If you did not join, I am afraid our mission would have failed. Deep in the sky-shaking mountain range. Scoundrel, who told you to lead the Earth Dragon army to attack those humans? This elder, those Earth Dragons are stupid to death. They also frequently attack other creatures in the mountain. What is the use of keeping them? I think those humans should have already died in the Earth Dragon's mouth. With their strength, they are only fit to be the Earth Dragon's lunch. Humph, Luo-yi, how many times have I told you, humans must not be underestimated. Although the Iron North Earth Dragon only has a small amount of dragon blood, after all, they are related to dragons by blood. If you do this, if the Dragon Lord blames you, who can bear the responsibility? To tell you the truth, I can't feel the aura of those Earth Dragons you sent. What? Impossible, how can those humans be so strong? More than 60 Earth Dragons, even if it is us, it is not easy to deal with them. Did you forget what I said just now? Those humans who dare to covet the Dragon Lord's treasure, if they do not have a certain strength, how can they enter our sky-shaking mountain range with great fanfare? The injury on your back can't be healed so quickly, right? Go and prepare, we should welcome the guests. Elder, I know I was wrong. But don't worry, with my clan's strength, we will definitely be able to keep all these humans here. No matter how strong they will not be able to contend against the Dragon Lord. Impudent, the Dragon Lord must not be disturbed. Did you forget the last time the Dragon Lord was woken up from his sleep? Elder, I am sorry, I will go now. The Frozen Moon mercenary group set off again. When they went over a mountain, they were shocked to find that everything in front of them had completely changed. The chill of winter did not exist here, there was only the warmth of spring. As far as the eye could see, the mountains that were not very tall were completely covered in green. The temperature was much warmer than the other side of the mountain that they just went over. The leisurely air brought by the plants made people feel relaxed and happy, and there was even a faint fragrance of flowers. All kinds of animals shuttled back and forth in the mountain forest. The sound of insects and birds could be clearly distinguished. There was even the sound of a stream flowing from the depths of the mountain forest. Where was the sense of danger? It was completely a scene of paradise. The difference between the front and back made the mercenaries stop moving forward. Now, they finally understood why they could not see the existence of animals in the mountains. Nianbing sniffed and calmly said, "This is the smell of fire. For such a strange scene to appear in the harsh winter, it can only prove that this place is special. Teacher Li Hua, do you feel it? The fire magic element here is especially active, while the other magic elements are much thinner." Li Hua nodded and frowned. Could it be because of the treasure? If there is a master fire attribute gem vein here, this kind of weather change may occur. Hearing about the fire attribute gem vein, all the mercenaries' eyes lit up. To be able to make a few mountains as warm as spring, how many fire attribute gems would it require? If it was really a gem vein, it would definitely be comparable to the wealth of an empire. Nianbing shook her head and said, "We can't be that lucky. Unless there is a mountain full of earth fire attribute gems. Moreover, if it is a gem, how can it grow so well? There must be something fishy about this. President Carlo, don't forget what I said before. Carlo nodded and said, let's set off. Although the enemy exists, we still have a chance. The mercenary group went down the mountain. The warmth made them change out of their thick clothes, and their progress was much lighter. Nian Bing released her spirit and constantly paid attention to the surrounding scene, trying to find out the existence of the enemy. Since the enemy had already warned them that day, then today, there would definitely be someone appearing to stop them from moving forward. However, the Frozen Moon mercenary group's progress was much easier than imagined. Not only were there no traces of the enemy, even the wild beasts in the forest avoided them. No difficulties appeared. Sitting on the pole and coveting the beautiful scenery around, Nian Bing's originally nervous heart also relaxed a little. The closer they got to the target, the higher the surrounding temperature. When they had already seen the tall mountain where the target was, the environment around them was already no different from summer. Carlo made a prompt decision. In order to reduce the burden, he made everyone leave behind their heavy clothes. Only then did he go into battle lightly and continue forward. Under Carlo's signal, Gatling soared into the air. The tip of his foot lightly tapped on a big tree in front of him, and his body rose up again. He had already rushed to the top of the tree and borrowed the force of the treetops a second time, sending his whole body nearly 8 zhang in the air. Looking at Gatling's powerful light body technique, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel a little envious. In some aspects, warriors indeed had an advantage that mages couldn't compare to. Floating in the air, his body slowly descended like a leaf. At this moment, Gatling's cold face already had a little more excitement. Leader, I see it. There is a very large cave at the foot of the mountain in front of us. It can be easily seen from the outside. It seems that there are no enemies guarding there. Carlo's eyes flashed and he said, this seems to be a little too smooth. Everyone must not relax their vigilance. Let's go. Going down the mountain, when they walked out of a dense forest, they finally saw the cave that Gatling had mentioned. The cave was indeed very large. The diameter of the cave was more than 10 zhang. It was dark inside, and he couldn't see what was inside. Carlo took out the treasure map and carefully checked it. Yes, this cave was where the treasure was. Carlo took a big stride to the entrance of the cave and looked around. He shouted anxiously, "For people are guarding the entrance of the cave. The others are protecting the mages as they enter the cave. Move quickly." "No, there's no need. Coming here, your lives have already come to an end." A deep and aged voice sounded, and the surrounding air suddenly became abnormally hot. In the forest outside the cave entrance, above the cave entrance, nimble figures appeared one after another. These figures were completely fiery red. Carlo only felt a huge pressure coming from above his head, and subconsciously took a step back, flying back to his own mercenary group. What was going to come would eventually come. Moreover, this was clearly a trap that was specifically waiting for him and the others. The two sides sized each other up. The mercenary group led by Carlo had always been in the open, while their opponents had always been in the dark. At this moment, when they really met, Carlo couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Were they humans? There were hundreds of red figures in front of them, and they had already surrounded the mercenaries from all directions. These people's appearances were very similar, and their figures were exactly the same as humans. There was no difference, but it was easy to tell the difference between them and humans from their skin. To be precise, these enemies who suddenly appeared did not have any skin exposed at all. A layer of fine dark red scales completely wrapped their bodies, and they only wore rough cloth clothes that covered the important parts of their bodies. Under the sunlight in the shadows of the trees, the scales reversed with a dark red luster. The sudden increase in temperature seemed to be because of their appearance. Looking at the three tall scaled men in front of him, Carlo said in a deep voice, "We have no intention of making things difficult for you. We just want the things in this cave. Can you make an exception?" The scaled man in the center seemed to be quite old. He said calmly, "That's impossible. Our greatest dragon lord lives in this cave. Don't talk about going in. After seeing the appearance of our clansmen, you already won't be able to leave here alive. If you are willing to be natural, I can leave you a way out. Killing you despicable humans will only dirty my hand." Carlo looked around. All the scaled men seemed very calm. The tips of their fingers were sharp like claws, and their cold gazes were fixed on them. Carlo constantly calmed down the nervousness in his heart. He knew that if every scaled man present was as strong as the two who had ambushed them, they might not even have the chance to escape today. Just when Carlo was somewhat at a loss as to how to deal with this situation, Nian Bing opened her mouth. "This old mister, hello. We came here because we obtained a treasure map. We don't have any enmity towards the nobles, and we didn't know that it was your private property. If you don't want us to get the treasure, we can just leave. Why do we have to hurt our friendship?" "Leave? After you leave, you lead a large group of humans to disturb the Dragon Lord's rest? That's impossible. If you don't commit suicide, you can go die." As he spoke, he raised his hand and was about to order the strange scaled men to attack. Nian Bing and Feng Nu looked at each other. He suddenly remembered what Hillard had said to him and exclaimed, "You are the Dragonborn? Are you the Dragonborn who guard the dragons?" When the originally silent group of Dragonborn heard Nian Bing say the words Dragonborn, it immediately caused a commotion. The elder at the front frowned slightly. "You know us?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "I have heard of the existence of the Dragonborn before. In that case, the treasure you are guarding should be the treasure of a dragon." "That's right, we are the fire dragons. I can also tell you that I am the only remaining elder of the fire dragons, Jean Tuesday. Even if you know this, it's useless. Today you must die. The dignity of the Dragonborn cannot be violated. Kill. Go, water dance waves." An old voice sounded, and a huge blue halo suddenly appeared and dispersed into the surroundings, just in time to welcome the fire dragon tribesmen who were pouncing over. It turned out that Nian Bing had been instructed by Li Hua to talk to the other party in order to buy more time to recite the spell. The other party had no intention of letting them go at all. In that case, they could only fight head-on. Water Dance Waves was an 8th grade water magic attack that used a large area of effect. It consumed a lot of magic power, but in the current situation where they were facing a large number of enemies, it was obviously the best choice. Unfortunately, in this territory of the fire dragons, the power of water magic was sharply reduced. An 8th grade spell could only display the power of a 7th grade spell. Water waves spread out like waves, carrying bursts of rapid water arrows to block the attacks of the fire dragons. Red fighting spirit fluttered around, blocking the continuous attacks of the water dance wave. Feng Nu suddenly shouted, "Rush into the cave, there is a better defense there." Nian Bing's eyes lit up. "That's right. Advance in order to retreat." Before Carlo, Gatling and Huarue rushed to the cave entrance, he took the lead and threw out 2 magic scrolls. This was his trump card to save his life. Ice and Fire, the 2 strongest 6th grade magic scrolls that Nian Bing could make, instantly exploded. Red and blue light collided in a rush, and the violent explosion seemed to shake the whole mountain range. Under the effect of Nian Bing's full power of ice and fire, a huge impact of the 8th grade erupted with the Elder as the center. The impact of the magic was completely one-sided. When the Fire Dragon's Elder heard Feng Nu's shout, his expression changed. Silver fighting spirit covered his whole body, and he pushed forward with both hands, trying to break through the magic, but Nian Bing's scroll attack had already arrived. A Tier 8 offensive spell could not threaten a martial saint, not to mention that the Fire Dragon Tribe's people had strong bodies that ordinary people could not compare to. In the Great Shock, the Fire Dragon Tribe's Elder only took a step back before stabilizing himself. However, the dozen Fire Dragon Tribe's people who were originally beside him were blown away by the sudden appearance of the spell. They seemed to be afraid of the huge cave behind them and would rather be injured by the impact of the spell than be pulled back. They barely controlled their bodies to fly diagonally. Only the fire dragon's elder was left in front of the cave entrance. At this time, Huarue's pair of huge wheeled axes arrived. Ding! Ding! 2 clear sounds rang out, and Huarue was sent flying while spurting out blood. 2 marks had actually been left on her battle axes. Carlo and Gatling were sent flying at a speed that was not much slower than hers. Against a true martial saint, a pugilist would not stand a chance. The fire dragon's elder was obviously angry, and the silver fighting spirit on his body completely expanded. He was continuously attacked by magic and 3 pugilists. As strong as he was, he couldn't help but feel his blood boil. The mercenaries had already rushed forward with all their strength under Feng Nu's words. At this time, the first to attack was a red light. When the red light rushed to 3 feet in front of the fire dragon's elder Jean Tuesday, the red light suddenly turned silver, and a loud phoenix cry sounded. The silver sword shadow was so unpredictable in Jean Tu's eyes. His expression changed slightly, and Jean Tu punched out with both his fists at the same time, his holy fighting spirit surging. As if it was solid, it crashed into the sword curtain. Phoenix feather slash! The sound of breaking silk sounded, and the same silver fighting spirit suddenly condensed into one, cutting Jean Tu's fighting spirit apart, and the tail flame went straight to Jean Tu's chest. Do you really want to die? Jean Tu roared angrily, and his body suddenly jumped up with a dragon cry in his mouth. He dodged the sword light and attacked Feng Nu, who had rushed to the position where he was standing before. Feng Nu's eyes were unusually calm, and her mouth made a phoenix cry, and the silver fighting spirit around her body expanded a little. Phoenix Dance 9 Heavens. The leaving divine sword in her hand suddenly slowed down, and with a simple upward slash, her body began to dance gracefully with the divine sword. Jean Tu's expression changed greatly. Although his fighting spirit was superior to Feng Nu's, he had encountered strong enemies one after another, and with Feng Nu's sword of blazing heaven, he was no longer confident that he could win. He waved his hand strangely in the air, trying to find the spine of the godly sword of blazing heaven to release his fighting energy. However, the Phoenix girl didn't give him the chance. The Phoenix Dance of the 9 Heavens vividly displayed its strangeness, forcing the golden centipede to release his fighting energy and fight it head-on. Blood burst out, and the scales on the left side of Jean Tu's chest flew off, leaving a wound that was half an inch deep and half a foot long. Blood flowed out, making the scales on his body look more vivid. His body was shaken and flew out and landed outside the cave. Although his face was covered with scales, no expression could be seen. Nian Bing noticed that there was a trace of panic in his eyes. He obviously wasn't at a disadvantage, so why was he panicking? At this time, Li Hua's magic finally ended under the crazy attack of a large amount of fire fighting spirit. Fortunately, Feng Yun used a level 6 earth magic in time, and Long Ling's large area ice blade slash helped the mercenaries temporarily resist the attack of the fire dragons. The attack power of the fire dragon's warriors was extremely strong, and they were at least at the level of a great swordsman, and there was no lack of martial artists among them. Carlo and the other 2 who were shaken and flew out, barely suppressed their injuries and desperately helped their subordinate. Only then did they manage to restrain the enemy's attack, and prevent the mercenaries' formation from being disrupted. Even so, most of the mercenaries had already been injured. Feng Nu hurriedly said, "Quick, enter the cave." Nian Bing also threw caution to the wind, and reluctantly threw out 4 precious magic scrolls. They were also of the same origin of ice and fire, but this time it was a combination of 5 types of magic. The 4 scrolls combined to form 2 powerful magic, but this time it wasn't a single attack, but a double attack. Because each scroll was formed by the fusion of magic, the exquisiteness of the changes was breathtaking. In an instant, 4 red and blue flowers suddenly burst out in the middle of the fire dragon's warriors. The gorgeous rays of light made the sun pale in comparison, and the violent explosion completely stopped the attack of the fire dragon's warriors. But Nian Bing shockingly discovered that powerful magic of the seventh step could at most injure these strange people covered in scales, and couldn't really take their lives. However, using the 4 magic attacks that burst out in an instant, the mercenaries quickly rushed into the cave. Among them, the strongest mercenaries under the leadership of Carlo, Feng Nu, and the others stood guard at the entrance of the cave, and continued to fight the fire dragon's warriors. After entering the cave, at least they didn't have to worry about the rear for the time being. Although there were many enemies, there was only one wave of them. After forcing Jin Tu back with a sword, Feng Nu said in a deep voice, "Elder Jin, let your clansmen withdraw. You should be able to see that I didn't kill them because I didn't want to make things difficult for you nobles. Why do you have to force us to meet on the battlefield? Can't we withdraw from the sky-shaking mountain range and keep the secret for you?" Jin Tu said angrily, "You dare to enter the fire dragon cave of the Dragon Lord, which is the greatest insult to us fire dragons. Only blood can wash away the shame. If you are still a warrior with dignity, come out of the cave. Fight with us fair and square." A fireball and an ice ball collided in the air, and the fire dragons were forced to retreat again. Carlo's voice came from behind Feng Nu, "We are only mercenaries. If you are not warriors, then just rush in if you have the ability. Will we be besieged by you outside? Only if we are fools. Everyone, hold on. Whether we can go back alive is up to us." Jin Tu was so angry that he laughed. "Good, I want to see how long you can hold on. Kill them. Archers, climb the trees. Destroy those magicians for me first." He had already found that it would be very difficult to break through the other party's defense line before killing the magicians. On the Rangoon continent, just as Hillard had told Nian Bing, some humans used giant dragons as their totems to form the Dragonborn race. These Dragonborn were divided into several groups according to the dragon race they believed in. The Fire Dragon tribe in front of them was one of the branches. The Frozen Moon mercenary group was quite lucky. Although the Fire Dragon tribe was powerful, they were much weaker than the other Dragonborn races. This could be seen from the fact that they only had one swordsman elder among them. Dozens of Fire Dragon tribe members had already climbed up the trees outside the cave. They pulled their bows and threatened the mercenaries inside. Jin Tu glared at Feng Nu. "The Feng people and our Dragonborn have always minded our own business. If you leave now, I can let you go." Feng Nu said in a low voice, "Then please let us go together. The promise I made just now is absolutely valid. If anyone reveals the whereabouts of the Dragonborn after we leave, I will be responsible for enforcing the law on behalf of the Dragonborn. How about it?" Jin Tu snorted, "Do you think this is a human city? You can come and go as you please. I don't mind being enemies with the Feng people. Since you are so stubborn, don't blame me for being impolite." As he said that, he waved his hand forward. The Fire Dragon tribe warriors launched another fierce attack. Ear-piercing whistling sounds rang out. Fire arrows fell from the top of the trees like meteors, passing by the mercenaries in front of them and going straight for Nian Bing and the others. Those were all arrows shot out with fire attribute Do Qi. With the bodies of Nian Bing and the others, there was no way they could block them. Water curtain connects the sky. The only sorcerer, Li Hua, displayed his powerful magic. A blue light curtain lit up. Not only did it completely dissolve the fire arrows, but it also forced the Fire Dragon tribe warriors who were charging at the mercenaries to retreat a little, reducing the impact on the mercenaries. Jin Tu did not participate in the battle again. He just looked at the enemies in front of him and commanded his people to continue attacking. This hole was really too big. At least half of the mercenaries were needed to completely block the hole. The Fire Dragon tribe warriors at the front all had the strength of a pugilist. If it were not for the magic support of Nian Bing and the others, as well as the mercenaries who used 120% of their strength in order to save their lives, their defense line would have been broken through long ago. Feng Yun used the Earth Extension spell to seal the hole smaller, Nian Bing said anxiously. At this time, the narrower the hole was, the better it was for Nian Bing and the others. After all, there were not many strong people in their mercenary group. If the hole was narrower, with Feng Nu and a few other pugilist-level experts at the front and the support of magic at the back, it would not be a problem for them to hold on for at least a period of time. Feng Yun smiled bitterly and said, "I've tried, but the structure of this mountain is very special. The earth element is very inert and very sturdy. It can't be moved at all." Nian Bing sighed in her heart. She knew that in this situation, it was no doubt a fool's dream to rush out. Feng Nu, don't be merciful. Otherwise, everyone will die here. One killed is one less. Feng Nu's eyes flashed, and the momentum of her body suddenly changed. Jin Tu also noticed this. Before Feng Nu could kill, he quickly rushed up and fought with Feng Nu with his tyrannical saint fighting aura. He had the advantage of fighting aura, and Feng Nu had the parting heaven sword. The two of them fought together, and the situation was temporarily tied. The breeze kept blowing, causing the leaves to rustle. The foot of the mountain with fresh air should have been a paradise, but at this time, there was a fierce battle. No matter how hard a great swordsman fought, it was impossible for him to defeat a pugilist. The wounds on the mercenaries kept increasing. Long Ling no longer cared about attacking the enemy, and put all her attention on healing the mercenaries. And now that he had lost control of the earth, the great earth element magic Feng Yun was now equivalent to a piece of trash. He could only watch the battle in front of him. Suddenly, he had an idea. He turned around and ran into the cave. At this time, everyone's attention was focused on the battle, and no one noticed him. Li Ji had a heavy responsibility. He had to defend against the attacks from the trees outside, and this required a long time of magic support. Although he was a sorcerer, facing the attacks of so many warriors, the time he could support was decreasing. Among the four magicians, the only one who could support the attack was Nian Bing. Since leaving the Peach Blossom Forest, this was the first time he spared no effort to use all his abilities. Holding the sigh of the Snow Goddess and the roar of the Fire God in his hands, he was able to greatly reduce the consumption of his magic power by relying on the two divine weapons. His magic power of the same origin of ice and fire was unleashed to the maximum. The red and blue radiance blasted away the attacks of the Fire Dragon warriors again and again. It was also because of his all-out performance that the dragon spirit had the chance to heal the wounded.